Welcome back to the 56th Annual Governor's Cup. We're in the Pacific Ocean off Newport Beach, California for Balboa Yacht Club's prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship in its 56th year. This is Tom Ehman along with Andy Rose and Matt Whitfield. We have Tommy Spithill on the roving boat along with Claire Costanza. Welcome and thanks for joining us again today. Day 5. This is the final day. We have the ends of the semifinal matches between Callahan and Peterson, and then Pinckney and Tapper. And the winners of those two semifinal matches, Andy Rose, will go through to the first to win 3 race finals.
Yep. I think we were very impressed yesterday. It was interesting. The first race of the semifinalists, Pinckney and Peterson won pretty convincingly. But these good, when you're a really good match racer and you have a really good attitude, you just forget about the race you just lost and go on. Clearly they did, and Cole Tapper and Justin Callahan came in to even the series. So, it's what we expected, Tom. I mean, this is the closest. The semifinalists were not decided until the last race of the rounds robin. So,
closest ever, right? Closest ever. Didn't we decide this morning at the morning show it was as good or better than any previous Governor's Cup in terms of how close, 8 of the 12, except for Jeffrey Peterson, who was launched. He was undefeated in the rounds robin. Right. But the other 7 teams really were close, and it did come right down to the finals of the finals. Several flights, 3 flights of the rounds robin yesterday. And Matt Whitfield, the kid from Wales, as I called him in our email this morning, who's identifying these days as a Husky from the University of Washington, because you're living up in Seattle. Welcome again to our commentary booth here on the good ship Adios.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Got quite nice conditions for racing today, so excited to see what we can see between these four teams in the semi-finals.
Andy, speaking of conditions, what about the wind? It's back around to the
southwest.
West.
Yeah, which is actually a good sign. The only thing, this morning we had an early westerly. If the skies had been clear, we would have said, boy, it's going to blow 18 knots this afternoon, but the skies were not clear, and it's still quite humid. So thankfully, it is at around 215 degrees now, wind direction, and that's a good direction. If we get lucky, it'll slightly increase over the day and maybe go a bit more to the right, but certainly great sailing conditions right now. We've talked about it before, but these boats were designed for sailing in this stuff, and believe me, you'll have some very exciting and close races here today.
Speaking of the boats, the Gov Cup 22s designed by BYC, Balboa Yacht Club staff Commodore Alan Andrews. Tell us about these terrific, identical boats provided to the competitors.
Sure. Well, at first, in the boat, originally when I sailed in the Governor's Cup, we had to bring our own boat. And, so the boats were never quite equal and that kind of thing. So in 2002 and 3, we raised the money almost all from within Balboa Yacht Club to build a fleet of Governor's Cup 21s, 12 of those. And they served us very well. But in 2016 was the 50th anniversary, and we did it again almost all from Balboa Yacht Club members, and we built 12 of these Governor's Cup 22s. I'm a co-owner of an Al Andrews 50-footer, which is a superb, wonderful boat, but I think this is arguably his best design ever, and he has quite a record. There's more than just my boat. He's just terrific, and these boats, I think he hit it out of the park, because you can race in 4 knots of breeze, but at 18 knots they are way fun.
We are very happy again, and really, to one of the best coaches in the sport, one of the best commentators in the sport, to have Tommy Spithill, the more famous brother of James Spithill, with us today on the roving boat, along with Claire Costanza, both Sydney-siders, both Australians. Delighted to have them with us. Let's go to Tom and get a little analysis before the first start here, Tom.
Yeah, morning, Tom. Morning to the rest of you on the commentary deck there. We're just watching the teams, just doing their warm-ups, doing all their checks, finding out which end of the start line they like, making sure they're going quick through the water. We just saw Pinckney and Peterson line up for a speed test. We were in a good spot to check out their setups with their sail trim. What did you think, Claire?
So it was quite interesting watching them both going upwind. They were similarly paced, but they were both running quite a different mode. So we'll see which mode pays out today.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Claire. Let's go to Matt Whitfield as we're about to get the signal starting this sequence here. Andy, do you want to start off before we go to Matt?
Well, I want to say that Matt is also our, we're commentators and Tom is the host, but he's also our investigative reporter. And I want to tell you, he has talked to some of the coaches on the QT. So during the broadcast today, Matt will be sharing. And as he said this morning, he says, much to my surprise, some of them were quite honest, not doing the party line. So we'll look forward to that.
So this is the National Enquirer version of Gov Cup TV, Matt Whitfield, who he said is from Wales. He's a Brit. You can tell by his accent perhaps that he's not a Yank like Andy and I, but we're delighted to have him with us as our, do we call him our analyst or our analyst?
Hopefully former.
It started awfully early here, Tom.
In the,
Jesus,
Matty,
Tom,
give us the update
Tom
here.
5 minutes in the sin bin.
Yeah,
Did you hear that?
I did. I'll keep my knees together, though, Tommy. Hey, tell us, Matt, what signals are up on the signal boat, the race committee boat, and what do they mean?
So they've got the numeral pennant 1 up right now, just about to raise the P flag for 4 minutes, as you can see happened right now. So the boats enter at 4 minutes, and they're doing so. Peterson from the starboard end, the yellow end, and Callahan, Justin Callahan from the blue end, the port end.
And these semifinals, as we've said, they're tied 1-1. Both this match between Peterson and Callahan. Peterson won the first match yesterday, and then Callahan came back and had a strong performance in the second, and they are tied.
So one thing to note about that there, you can see Justin Callahan was able to cross over to windward of Jeffrey Peterson and his team, which indicates that there may well be a decent amount of port bias on this line. So although Jeffrey Peterson and his team are in a very strong position here, that's one of the little signs that the sailors will be picking up on to see exactly where they want to go.
Oh, there's probably going to be a call starboard port, but I don't think he gave Justin enough room to keep clear, so there's probably
green flag.
Yeah, green
from
flag.
the umpire.
Good. I think that was a great call. You must. The rule basically says that you can tack onto starboard, but when you do so and become the right-of-way boat, you must do so far enough from the other boat to allow the other boat to maneuver to get out of your way. And I don't think he did, and so that was a no call. Jeffrey Peterson would have flown his flag to indicate a protest, but the umpires, I believe, as usual, made a great call there.
Yeah, and the thing to note there is as well, it's the tack is only complete once you are at a close-hauled course. It's not when you're through the breeze, so you need to leave a lot more space than you think.
And Matt, what does that mean for our non-high-end racing sailors? What's close-hauled course
A
mean?
close-hauled course is a course where you are beating, which would be where both of your sails are trimmed in to upwind settings and are fully filled. So that's typically anywhere between 45 and 38 degrees to the wind for most boats.
If you're watching, what you'd see is if the sails are in and the boat's moving forward, then it is on a close-hauled course, likely.
No flappy sails?
No flappies.
We covered that one yesterday.
Yeah, we
too.
did. I like fluffy better, though. But okay, now here's a windward leeward. So Jeffrey Peterson coming in from the leeward or right-of-way boat. So Callahan will have to respond. 141, so they're right up at the line, and they've got heaps of time to burn.
So there's a very good bit of sailing been going on right now from Jeffrey Peterson and his team, because they've managed to create a mismatch in hull speed, so he's able to control and have the hull speed to bail out and try and make sure that he controls where Justin Callahan is and pin him in close to the committee boat here with a lot of time to go. There may be 10 seconds from the start line and 1 minute 15 to go.
So Callahan could be in a bit of trouble here, as Jeffrey can basically like a dog that does the Australian healer that herds sheep. But Callahan has escaped. Oh, this will be interesting.
So here, Justin Callahan cannot complete a tack onto starboard here, so expect to see him jibe round.
Yeah, and this is the best thing you can do if you can force your opponent up against the boat where they have no place to go. Jeffrey's still early, though, 45
and
seconds.
there is a yellow flag displayed by the umpire, so Peterson copped a penalty for that. Presumably windward leeward, although it was hard to see from the camera angle.
I think it's again that he did not give the other boat room to keep clear, I believe.
So here, now Justin Callahan, he's escaped and he's got a penalty on Peterson, so he just needs to get an even start. So he doesn't want to do anything, don't want to get the boats too tight, just get a good clean start. and Jeffrey Peterson is going to have to try and be ahead so as he can extend out and potentially offset his penalty.
Or get a penalty on the other boat.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Jeffrey had the leeward position, the pin end position, so he's just going to go down and start there, and Justin was forced basically to tack and come up to this end. And Justin's going pretty quickly there.
So it's a pretty even start. Both boats getting a good start at their respective ends of the line, although one thing to note is that there is probably a little bit of pin end bias, so potentially advantage Peterson, but he still owes that penalty.
Are you guys surprised a little bit at the number of penalties that Peterson has incurred in this regatta?
I think with Peterson's, the way he's sailing, they're sailing very aggressively, so they're living by the sword, and sometimes if you live by the sword, you do die by the sword. But he's sailing so well that often he's been able to offset these penalties and sail so far ahead to spin.
Well, in fact, every time, including a double penalty at one point, he's been able to just sail faster and better and win the races anyway. So it's quite a show. It just surprises me a little bit that there's this many penalties. But he is being very aggressive. I asked him that last night, actually. And he said, yeah, it's sort of, we're aggressive, but occasionally little mistakes, and they are little mistakes.
I've just talked with the umpires. It was a Rule 11 call, windward leeward.
Windward leeward. No, so Matt was right. Yep.
Matt's almost always right, Andy.
As I said a couple of years ago, Matt has just dislocated his shoulder for patting himself on the back. So,
Okay, but let's talk about looking up the track. Go to Tommy Spithill quickly. Tom, what do you think? You and Claire, do you like the left? Do you like the right? Why?
Yeah, at the moment it's pretty close to call here. We've got Jeffrey Peterson on port coming back here against Justin Callahan. At the moment, I anticipate Jeffrey's going to cross by maybe 2 lengths.
Yep, that looks.
But it's touch and go at the moment. Every now and again, a boat gets a bad wave, or they get a little bit of a gust, and the angles change. So, but at this stage, it's looking like Peterson's going to cross comfortably.
And it looks like at the top of the course there is a little bit more solid pressure on the left-hand side, Tommy. Would you agree? So you'd expect to see Peterson tack right on Callahan's face to bounce him off to the right-hand side.
Yeah, look, he may decide to lamp him here, and sure enough, he is. He's tacked on top of him with about a 4-length lead. So, yeah, as you said, Matt, he does like that top left. He made a big gain out on the left-hand side, so it's quite normal to see Peterson try and protect that side and send Justin out to the right here. So what'll be interesting at the top mark is if the guys jibe set or elect a straight set.
So we've seen a little bit of on the compass here, we've seen a left shift. Okay, let's go back to the start here of this next pair, and we'll keep in touch with the Peterson match.
So there's 2:10 to go. Tapper is the yellow entry, so the starboard entry, and Morgan Pinckney is the port entry, the blue entry, and they're just breaking out of their dial-up now.
There's a flag from Tapper, greened by the umpires.
A lot of talk in this start. Not a big surprise.
Tapper in boat 2, and Morgan Pinckney in boat 9.
Little lighter here. As I said, these clouds are really not a good omen for breeze, but there's still breeze. It has gone a bit left and died a little bit, but there's still a good sailing breeze. All right, nobody has any particular advantage right now with 1:22 to go, but now the decision will be made. You'll see which boat wants to go to the left and which boat wants to protect the right.
This match also tied at 1-1 in the first to win 3 semifinals.
So Morgan Pinckney jibing round and Cole Tapper going across his bow, implying that Cole Tapper believes that he would prefer to be at the pin end of the line. He wants to lead back and control this time in. We saw Jeffrey Peterson last start get a really good start off the pin end, so maybe Cole's been watching that and wants to repeat that.
I think it's not a bad idea.
If there's port bias on the line and in light winds, the default is to always lead, because if you get the boat slow in light winds, it's really hard to build the speed back up. And you can see Cole Tapper doing a really good job of getting Morgan Pinckney to have to do a lot of snaking, a lot of tiller movement, slowing up the hull.
It'll become almost exactly like the last start. Morgan Pinckney will not be able to hang there as soon as they come down to start with 22 seconds left. So almost a repeat of the last start.
Carry on, guys, but at the top mark there's a terrific luffing match, which we're going to cut to right after this start.
Right, as soon
Yeah,
as
I
these
can
guys start.
give you guys an update here at the top. The two sailors here have gone about 8 lengths past the top mark. They've decided to add a bit more length to the upwind leg here. And we've got Callahan here with Peterson stuck to windward. The interesting thing is Peterson's got a penalty here, so you may even see Peterson go for attack and elect to take the turn himself here, or utilise this time to do it. What do you think, Matt? We were talking about this exact scenario yesterday, but at the bottom mark.
If I was Peterson, I'd be thinking, well, I'm already high. Although they're facing upwind, they're on the downwind leg, so the penalty is attack. So if you can get rid of your penalty and stay within 2 boat lengths, I think he's confident in his downwind ability. So I'd have considered doing attack there, but he's thinking, I want to overtake, I want to control, and I can offset these penalties.
Yeah, so less than a boat length between them here. So having Peterson behind you like a raging bull here downwind, it's going to be Callahan's going to get a sore neck from looking back on this run, that's for sure.
Yeah, and a really good set by Peterson there. His team were able to gain that half a boat length, quarter of a boat length. That's super vital when the boats are so close.
So
just get on the inside edge.
So Tommy, Callahan was probably 4 boat lengths or 5 boat lengths behind. How did he catch up so quickly at the mark?
Yeah, so he came back with actually a right-hand shift. So Peterson won in the left, and as we were talking about, he sort of decided to send Callahan right, but sometimes you can accidentally send your opponent the right way to better air, and all of a sudden Callahan shaved 4 lengths away and he was back in it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of what we would expect, isn't it, gentlemen?
So here, the game here for Callahan, the purple spinnaker leading, he needs to try and get as low as possible so as he can jibe onto starboard jibe and head back towards the marks. Otherwise, he's going to be in a world of pain, with Jeffrey Peterson simultaneously jibing on top and just collapsing his spinnaker, so he's going to struggle. So right here, Callahan's although he's leading, he's definitely sweating, definitely nervous. There's a lot of port back to this starboard jibe back to this mark.
Yeah, it's a little bit skewed now, but the wind has gone a bit left, so they'll have a very long starboard tack jibe. What Jeffrey wants to do is stay in the middle of the course if possible, and here he goes, and jibe as often as possible if you're behind. But they've gone, no, they're not. They're still going to have to jibe a couple more times at least. So now.
So here, Callahan needs to try and squeeze his kite in as tight as possible just to keep it from collapsing. And Peterson is trying to get Callahan's kite to collapse. So it's a battle of the trimmers here. Both the skippers are putting the boats in positions to ask questions, and then Callahan is just really praying his spinnaker doesn't collapse. If that spinnaker starts to flop as it is, that's really dangerous.
How many times have we
Peterson's
seen Jeffrey
through now.
Peterson roll another team, and he just did again? That's just, it's amazing. I mean, Peterson just nothing phases him. When they're behind, that crew just almost works harder.
And Peterson still does owe a penalty, so
right.
He's ahead. He's got the track position, but he might look to come slow, do a mark trap, and try and slow up Callahan just to make sure that he can offset those penalties. Or he might go, I'm really, really quick. I think I'm fast. I can do it. I can get far enough ahead that I can do a spin at the pin to win.
You know, you said yesterday, Matt, that you think Jeffrey is a bit under the weight limit. How much do you suppose?
I don't think Jeffrey's that far under the weight limit. I would guess he is lighter than Callahan, though. I think Jeffrey maybe 30, 40 pounds under the weight limit, with Callahan being pretty much on it.
Yep.
It doesn't really make too much of a difference, marginal difference, but these conditions would definitely be something that the Peterson team would think they have an advantage in, but they're really quick when it's windy weather, so they're pretty confident in their boat handling their speed at any time.
Yeah, so Peterson now has stretched out his lead to about 2 and a bit lengths. Callahan, to me, looked a little bit unsteady downwind. There was a lot of movement, maybe a little bit of oversteering, and he's sort of getting caught up too with playing the main quite a bit. So it'd be interesting if he's able to sort of find his rhythm a little bit more on the downwinds. Obviously upwind, he's charging along quite nicely. Yeah. So let's see how this beat goes.
In that other semifinal, just a quick check-in, It looks like Cole Tapper with the red and white kite is around the top mark and has a big lead, maybe 8, 9, 10 boat lengths over Morgan Pinckney.
And just at the bottom mark here, back with the Peterson Callahan match. Callahan went and to throw a dummy tack. That was he fake tacking, and Peterson saw it, and he's come out of the bottom mark really slow here as Peterson called his bluff there.
Yeah, I wouldn't, in this kind of breeze, it's only blowing about 6 down here. I wouldn't try a fake tack in this kind of breeze. The boats just stop, and getting them going again is really tough.
So you can see, it, like Andy was saying, so hard to get the boats gaining. Peterson was maybe 2 lengths ahead at the bottom mark. Maybe now he's 3 lengths. He needs 4 to 5 boat lengths to be able to do this spin by being far ahead. So he's gaining the distance he needs. Just needs to keep on going fast forward and extend. And if you're Callahan, just keep it as tight, keep it close. Just try and get the boat trucking as fast as possible. You don't need to be a hero. You just need to be close enough.
I was just thinking that what Callahan and his crew are doing right now, solely focused on boat speed. Tactics right now aren't an issue. Just sail really fast, stay close to him, and it is difficult to do the turn in light air. So we'll see.
Speaking of Callahan's team, Justin Callahan on the helm, Liam O'Keefe is with him in the crew. Mitchell Callahan, his twin brother, on the bow, and Danny Riano. With Jeffrey Peterson is Max Brennan, his longtime friend and on and off crew in this Gov Cup racing, and Enzo Mendito, a new crew, doing his first match race. He is a Georgetown University teammate of Jeffrey Peterson's.
So what we're seeing happening here in the Peterson-Callahan race is Callahan seems to be content to head out to the ley line here and just wait for Jeffrey to tack on the ley line and just try and minimise the losses. The other option for him could have been do an early tack up this beat, but each time he tacks, Peterson's tacking right on top of him. So he's probably thinking here, okay, I'm breathing. That means I'm not getting dirty air from Peterson. I'm just going to wait until he tacks and goes for the top mark. I know Peterson's got a penalty, so he's just trying to stay close. Oh, and Peterson's doing his penalty turn now on the ley line.
So really interesting move here from Peterson. He has no rights until he completes his penalty turn.
Okay, so the penalty is absolved, so there's no penalty, and Peterson still maintains a very slight lead. That was actually very well done, and I think well timed. He waited till Justin Callahan appeared to start his tack, and Peterson immediately did his turn.
I thought, Andy, that Justin could have actually maybe even protested Jeffrey there. His transom still was swinging as he was coming up to close haul. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, so Jeffrey was just completing his tack, and it looked like Justin could have had the opportunity to go down and potentially get the hook to leeward and protest Jeffrey because, as Tommy said, he still hadn't quite completed his tack.
Yeah, we're just looking at the drone footage, and I think Jeffrey did that very well. I really do. I don't think there was a possibility.
But I think Justin probably remembered yesterday when there was a similar incident when Jeffrey tried to come down below him and get the luff, and Jeffrey was the one in Justin's position and got penalised for it. So is one thing to think about is if the umpires like a decision one way, that might be one thing to think about.
Well, it couldn't be any closer, folks. You can see both boats. Looks like it's only one boat there.
So here you're seeing Peterson really try and go into a high mode. You see really high traveller. Sails is trimmed and in-hauled as much as possible just to try and get the boat going high. Even though they're slightly higher the ley line, it just means that if he's able to get it high and Justin Callahan's getting that dirty air off the back of his sails, he might be able to gap out and get 1, 2, 3, 4 boat lengths and just make that downwind a little bit easier. As you can see now, he thinks he's got that gain, and now he's just heading straight to the mark, bore away 5 degrees and just really trying to gap out. And he's done a really good job of putting a boat length or 2 in between.
Yeah, I think
what this is also going to do, Matt, it's dragged the other match, unfortunately, into this top mark rounding as well. So he will have one of the sail-off matches as well. We'll be greeting him here on starboard tack. Actually, Colquitt here coming in at Peterson. So this will throw a spanner in the works.
We should say, thanks for that, Tommy, we've got 3 other consolation matches underway for obvious reasons, we're going to cover the semis more closely, but Bernal and Colquitt are racing for 5th place. Torre and Paul are racing for 7th place, and Coleman and Hyde are racing for 9th place in the consolation brackets.
Okay.
So really nice set by Peterson there,
Yeah,
but
perfect.
what you got to remember now with Bernal luffing him from to leeward, maybe Callahan is able to sneak inside and just gain that half boat length, that
Another
that he
great
needs
set.
just to do it. And a really good set, but luckily for Team Peterson, Bernal has jibed out and cleared out, so they're not going to. It's now moving back towards a match race with just 2 boats, not 4.
The green kite is Peterson, and the purple kite is Callahan coming down on their final leg. These are 4-leg race courses, windward, leeward, windward, finish, and the start line is the obverse. It's also the finish line.
So here it's reverse of the previous downwind, with Peterson leading Callahan out on port jibe, compared to Peterson following as like the last one. So the action will all be on starboard jibe when they go, and they won't be wanting to jibe in these waves. So expect to see Callahan try and do what Peterson did to him. Although one thing is that Callahan is about 1.5 lengths, 2 lengths behind, so it's going to make it a lot harder.
Well, and here goes Peterson, so Callahan will jibe immediately. Another great
Guys,
job.
just in other news, a bit of an update. Pinckney here has actually taken a bit of a chunk of Tapper's lead here, so he may be in striking distance for this last downwind.
He did indeed.
And just in speaking about leads here, Peterson is still maintained lead. If not, he's probably extended half a length, so doing a really good job trying to defend downwind. It's sort of easier attacking, being the boat behind, dictating what you want the boat in front to do, but Peterson's really holding his nerve and you know, and saying Max is doing a great job on trim there, just keeping Peterson pressured up and the boat rumbling.
And with Peterson as well, if you take the line dead downwind, he's probably getting some clean air out the front of Justin Callahan's sails. So he did in that jibe, he spun the boat really fast and went from being out, having wind out free to the left to wind out to the right hand side. So that was a really, really hard jibe to pull off, but their boat handling has been impeccable all week, and it's situations like that where it really makes a difference, and that could potentially be a race-winning jibe.
Well, what I said yesterday, Matt, it's when you have a lead, you want to be sure and do the tactics properly so you always have the lead. If you have to give up a little bit of it to do it, that's fine. And that was. So when you do a hard jibe like that, you're actually sailing farther through the water, but you keep your air clean. So he gave up a slight bit of his advantage, but has clean air. So really well done. But both crews, the sets were perfect, the jibes were perfect.
And the breeze has really moderated on the bottom half of this run, so you can see the poles have gone a long way forwards on the spinnakers. It's dropped off to maybe 3-4 knots. So the moding is all going to change here. It's going to be a lot hotter jibe angles, and you can see both of them jibing across here, and expect them to do the same thing, come out really high, flying the spinnakers essentially off the forestay.
And as we're waiting for this finish, just a quick update to say that, again, Tapper has rounded ahead, but less, probably 4 or 5 boat lengths, Tapper ahead of Pinckney at their second weather mark.
And so with this light pressure, Justin Callahan's just been able to affect Jeffrey's pressure a little bit and close a boat length or two as they do probably a final jibe into the finish.
Oh boy.
Jeffrey Peterson is roughly on the ley line for the port end, so it's hard for Callahan to do much, but he's just trying to gain as much as he can, and then Peterson's just trying to limp as fast as he can into that zone, and then he owns the rights to get round that finish buoy.
So Peterson's gonna win this by, well, look, they're both having to jibe. Peterson will get across the line on this jibe, though, and great job. But boy, that Callahan came, in this kind of conditions in light air, the boat behind actually has a bit of an advantage, because in light air the puffs come down the course, but they come, so the boat behind gets the puff first and could catch up. But look at how close that was. That was terrific.
Yeah, a matter of 3 or 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And a big cheer went up from the VIP boat over there. Got a big crowd of spectators out here today, and a big cheer, I think, for the hometown favorite from Balboa Yacht Club, Jeffrey Peterson and co. Let's go up to the finish now of the second semifinal match between Cole Tapper and Morgan Pinckney.
So Tapper
yeah,
with
guys,
the red spinnaker
less
is
than
leading.
half a metre between these boats at the moment. So huge comeback for Justin and his team here. They were more than 10 lengths behind on the first downwind leg, and now they're within striking distance.
Right.
But Tapper at the moment, out of that last manoeuvre here, we've had Pinckney here did 2 jibes, and Tapper's extended, and he's opened up the lead again back to a length and a half here. So not the best couple of jibes there for Pinckney, but still, it certainly isn't over yet.
Well, but the boat behind, has to do something. If you can't get on the boat ahead's air, you've got to do something. And the obvious thing is to jibe and see if you can get the other boat to jibe a couple times. The more times you do it, the more chance you have of getting by. Tapper did exactly the right thing and not fall for that. And 2 jibes hurts the boat speed, or hurts your way down the course.
And both of these teams do have to jibe back onto port jibe to make it to the finish. So Morgan Pinckney doing those 2 jibes has also placed himself in a great position to be able to simultaneously jibe and affect Tapper's air when they both get onto port. And they'll have to come in for about 100, 150 yards at the finish here.
Another great exhibition of crew work this match.
Absolutely.
Cole Tapper sailing with Jack Freeland and Hamish Boss crewing for him, representing the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, and Morgan Pinckney representing the hometown local across the bay here, Newport Harbor Yacht Club with Mark Murray, Matt Tail, and Alex McCoy.
So as you can see, Finn Tapper's going up really high here. You can see his bows pointing slightly higher than Morgan Pinckney, just trying to keep that spinnaker filled, trying to keep power in it, just trying to keep the boat moving just to limp to this finish line here. Morgan Pinckney coming in with a lot of speed.
Yeah, however, he called Cole Tapper called a great ley line there, meaning a very direct course to the finish. So he will, just like the last race, he will eke out this victory by a boat length or so, and really well done. In other words, you always want to worry about the boat behind, but you don't want to get suckered into the boat behind always controlling what you do. And I think that was a great exhibition of that.
Yeah, I think, Andy, on that downwind, we saw Pinckney do a couple of extra manoeuvres, and particularly out of the last manoeuvre, he tried to go for depth straight away out of it, and Tapper had a bit of time on that jibe, so he had a bit of momentum that sort of helps you get a bit deeper. And I think Pinckney tried to go for that depth straight away before he had speed, and as us sailors know, once you get speed, then comes your depth.
Yeah, and going down like that is basically what, as I said yesterday, we call soaking, basically. And what that means is you're going on a more direct course to the finish line, but that may not be the fastest course, and that's the key. And certainly if you're going to try to soak and get down, you want to be at full speed when you do it. You don't want to do it right after a jibe, and I think you're exactly right, Tom.
Well, we've got Peterson, who won a match yesterday, the first one, and then Callahan came back and evened the score at 1-1. Now Peterson's gone back ahead, whereas in the other semifinal, Pinckney started out with a win, and now Cole Tapper has won 2 in a row, if memory serves. Let's go around the horn. Andrew, what's your thoughts so far in these very hotly contested semifinal matches?
Well, Jeffrey Peterson's tough to beat.
Especially
with the
downwind.
penalties, just that was as good. I mean, we have a little disagreement with our colleagues on the rover, but from looking at the drone and from where we are, it looked like Jeffrey Peterson, I thought, did that perfectly, killed the foul perfectly there, and in doing so, maintained the lead. And I just think he sailed brilliantly, and they're clearly sailing fast, and that fast is always good. When I'm on a boat and I'm the tactician, if we're going fast, it makes me look awesome.
Matt, what do you think?
I think kind of the same. I think what we saw is the left-hand side was pretty good off the start line. Both the boats that came off the port end were considerably ahead at the first cross. So I would expect to see a lot of fighting for that pin end in the next coming race. And just ultimately sailing the boat fast. And there are overtaking lanes, like Justin Callahan came from behind to be ahead. So exciting racing. It's not over till the finish line.
Tommy, Claire? Yep, we've lost Rover. Rover, roll over.
I think they're back in the Doritos there. So,
But a great set of semifinals, and we're delighted to have all of you joining us from around the world today on the various feeds. I'm going to sit back down here so Chris can come to our camera for the commentary camera as we await the starts of these next semifinal matches Again, it's first to win 3 in the best of 5, first to win 3. In the other consolation matches, Colquitt leads 1-0, but who's leading that match now? Ken? Bernal's leading. So Colquitt over Bernal in the first match. Bernal looks like he's going to even that up at 1-1. Those matches, consolation matches, are first to win 2. Meanwhile, Torre from WA, from the Royal Freshwater Bay Yacht Club, is racing Max Paul from Sydney, from the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. Torre won the first match, and how's that match going now?
Max Paul slightly ahead to the leeward marks there.
Max Paul, or is Torre ahead? It's close. Okay, it's a close one, that match. And the other consolation match for 9th place is Hyde, Josh Hyde from the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, racing Alec Coleman from Canada. Oh, Canada! From Western BC, from Western Canada. He is at the West Vancouver Yacht Club. He's leading and potentially going to tie that match up on 1-1.
We should say, Tom, that of these, the first 2 consolation matches, there was one race difference, basically. If Bernal or Colquitt or Torre had won one additional race in the rounds robin, they would have had a very good chance, or likely been a semifinalist instead of our current one. So we're very pleased with the competition. And I talked to Nicolas Bernal from Brazil this morning, and he's said, "Oh, I hope I can come back." And I said, "I think you may be able to come back." Alexander Colquitt, unfortunately, is 22, so this is his one and only Governor's Cup. But boy, for first-time sailors in the Gov Cup, both of those teams in particular, I think, just were outstanding.
And how many of the 12 teams are doing their first Gov Cup?
8, which is amazing. We haven't had that in a lot of years, basically. So.
And how many of the 12 teams are non-American?
We have a record 8 countries represented here, and on the umpire crew, we also have a record 8 countries represented. So this is truly an international competition. That's more, by the way, countries than the Youth World Championships has ever had.
I thought you were going to talk about the America's Cup and the number of challengers for the America's Cup.
The America's Cup, yes, there are very few challengers. It's become a private club, Tom. 30 people make a lot of money from the America's Cup. That's about it.
We might also mention, since you spoke about the umpires, Damien Bolderoo, who is from Australia, is the chief umpire of the Chump, and he's leading a team. How many, Christine? 12, 14 umpires? 12 umpires from, again, 8 nations, doing a fabulous job. We've seen 1 or 2 calls that we might have disagreed with, and what do we know? We're a long way away. And then when the kids go in and have a debrief with the umpires, what I've seen so far is the kids have said, you know what, now that we hear your side of it, you were right.
Yeah, exactly.
Great atmosphere here, not only among the sailors themselves, but between the sailors and the umpires and the officials. And
well, I should say, Tom, that our chair for life, Christine Robertson, I believe, picks the umpires each year, and this year she really hit it out of the park. So
is she chair for life?
Chair for life, yeah, exactly. And I would say Damien Bolderoo, he is the funniest chump I've ever met.
Yes.
As chief umpire, he has a terrific sense of humor. And it is a great pleasure to have him here as chief umpire, or it's known in the trade, the chump.
And most Aussies do have quite a personality, as you would know from your experience in the America's Cup back in the late 70s.
I do. After one of the America's Cup Hall of Fame dinners, and some of them a bit, shall we say, a bit boring, but in particular, John Longley, was known as Chink on the boat.
On
Chink
Australia, too.
On Australia, yeah. Chink was inducted and was totally hilarious. And I told the leadership afterwards, I said, always induct an Australian. There's got to be some Australian that's qualified, because as a country, they have a great sense of humor.
And that's coming up again at New York Yacht Club.
It is.
In October.
This October. We will be there, Tom Ehman, you and me, as has-beens. Yep. Yeah, that'll be fun. It's a great show when it's held at New York. It's in the famous model room at New York Yacht Club in the downtown club. And if you haven't been, it is one of the most amazing rooms in the world for a sailor.
Certainly in the history of our sport.
Yeah, in the history of the sport. They have a scale model, literally. All the boats that have challenged or defended the America's Cup, they have a scale model, a full model of each one circling the room to scale, so you can see how much bigger the J-boats were than the 12 meters and all that. And you could stay there forever.
Could indeed. As we're getting ready for the fourth matches, Peterson leads Callahan 2-1. Tapper leads Pinckney 2-1. And tell us, Tommy Spidhill and Claire Costanza on the roving boat. It's we said yesterday, it's really not our sideline reporter. They are our frontline reporter. Tell us about this breeze, which, as Matt said, has moderated, which is a polite way of saying it's gone soft, Matthew.
Yeah, that's correct, Tom. It certainly has dropped. We're now starting to see the crew, instead of the previous race, you had all three of them sitting on the rail, as we call it, or the side of the boat. Now the two skippers have sort of got their weight together on the floor, trying to squeeze close to the mast. You can just see Hyde and his team here. He's now jumped up on the side. But yeah, softer conditions, but the boats are still going through the water nicely, and they're still coming downwind pretty easily too. So, Claire, what do you think condition-wise?
Yeah, so we've just seen a little bit more cloud cover come over, which might have dropped the breeze. So maybe if we start to see a little bit more blue sky, it'll come up again. But unlike yesterday, the crews can't quite stretch their legs out on those hiking straps.
Tommy, tell Claire, I mean, for somebody that comes from Sydney, Australia, she is way good at the local knowledge here. Because I think that's exactly right. Claire, remember I was talking about that this morning, that what worried me was the cloud cover, because that's not a great omen for strong breezes. So, but as Tommy, as you said, there's enough breeze to sail. The boats are getting along quite nicely. I guarantee none of the losers of the race will say, oh, it's because of the conditions.
Yeah, well, you've got to win in all different types of conditions, and that was where it was good yesterday when we got into those 13, 14 knot puffs, seeing how the teams responded in those pressures. You can't be a light air specialist or a medium or heavy wind specialist. You've got to be a jack of all trades in these conditions. So it'll be interesting to see if any of the semi-finalists struggle in these lighter conditions.
Coming down the track, we've got a couple spinnakers, purple spinnaker, and that must be Max Paul, and he's got a lead 2-3 boat lengths, maybe less, over the green chitin. Now, how's that for an adjective?
There you go.
The green chitin, Marcello Torre from WA, Western Australia. It does look like Max Paul. These are the east and west coasts of Australia, of Oz, as we call it, coming into the finish line for their match. Colquitt Bernal, as Ken Sherb told us, they did tie that up. Bernal and Colquitt are tied on 1-1. And it looks like Max Paul is going to tie up this series, consolation series, with Torre, also at 1-1.
That's the Sydney Siders versus the Sandgroupers.
And where Coleman and Hyde are going uphill on the upwind left side of the track. That is for 9th place. Good format, Andrew. Andy Rose and the Gov Cup committee, they've put this double round robin format in, which a lot of clubs don't use in match racing, but I like it. It's particularly good for teams that have come in, never sailed in the local conditions, never sailed the provided boats. You get 22 matches, 2 rounds robin of 11 races each against each of the other competitors. And that, Andy, really is a leveling, I think, of the playing field. Brilliantly done. And then what you do to extend the racing, a lot of series, as soon as a team is eliminated from the semis, the kids are packed up and go home, but you keep them racing. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, I think that the format lends itself to that, and we've always believed that this is not a professional regatta, although teams like Cole Tapper and Jeffrey Peterson are just as good as anybody on the professional circuit. But it's great to keep everybody safe. You came here to sail,
yes,
and to tell to spend all the money to come from Australia or New Zealand or Europe and then say, sorry, you're gone after 2 days. That just doesn't seem right to us. I would also say, Tom, in reference to what you said, you're exactly right. If you remember, 2 years ago, our friend Marius Westerlund from Sweden was last.
Yes.
But he got all these races in, and the next year he got 2nd in the Worlds and 3rd in the Governor's Cup. So you just need the races under your belt, and we try to give them as many as possible.
And Marius Westerlund from Sweden also won the Miss Congeniality Award. He is the most fun, the most, he's got the greatest personality, a large personality, and was a real hoot and a real treat to have here at Gov Cup.
We miss him. Marius is trying to become the 49er representative in the Olympics for Sweden, so he is in a very important regatta this week. But believe me, I did talk to him a couple times, Tom, and he says, oh, I wish it wasn't the same weekend. I want to come back. But he has one more year.
Oh, he doesn't. He hasn't aged out.
He has one more year,
Good.
so hopefully next year. I don't know when the Olympics is, though, if he makes it, but
The Olympics is in, August next year in Marseille.
July, so it conflicts.
Late July?
Yep.
Late July, early August. I think it overlaps.
They overlap.
Right.
Well, we wish Marius luck or not. We would love to have him back, but we want the best for him, so I hope he qualifies for the Olympics. That's quite a feat.
Coming downhill, this consolation match for 9th place. You got Josh Hyde from the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron in the navy and white. It looks more gray to me, but I don't know. What's it look like on TV? Does it look gray or navy, the kite? He is trailing Alec Coleman from Canada, who appropriately has the red and white kite. And Coleman trailing in that match 0-1, and if he maintains his lead here, it looks like he has a pretty comfortable lead. Coleman will tie that match up. Andrew, the matches are extremely close.
Yeah, it really is. Well,
I'm going to go on the record. This is the best. In the 10 years I've been helping you and Christine with this regatta, this is the most competitive I've seen.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. I really do. This is incredible. With all these, normally who was telling me yesterday, the day before, that, one neat thing about the consolation rounds is you're competing against somebody who has each the identical record or one race different in the rounds robin. So it's no wonder that we have 1-1, races here.
Yes, but in the past, somebody has a particularly, they're quick in the conditions on the day, and they get a lead in the first race, and they have they have the big momentum, and they carry on, and it goes 2-0, but not today.
Not today.
Breeze coming up a bit.
It is coming up a bit. From the left, which is, again, not a great...
Crack spotter Ken Sherb. What's our compass heading on the wind now? 190. Thank you, Christine.
Chris Bretzker, can we at some point before we adjourn today get a picture of Ken, just to show he's... this is Sailor Ken, and you have to get a picture of Ken here to see what we mean.
I think what you mean, Andy, is that our spotters today are Ken and Barbie.
Ken and Barbie. There you go. Perfect.
Ken's dyed his hair blonde is what Andy's referring to, and I didn't recognize him when I
didn't either.
Because his eyebrows are still dark.
Well, in honor of the blockbuster movie Barbie.
It's made a lot of money.
It has made a lot of money.
We're reading the Wall Street Journal about it.
As has Oppenheimer, which is sort of I can't think of two different movies than those two.
That's a great kite, guys. That's not navy blue.
I agree with you.
Huh?
It looks a little bluish here, but no, I've never thought it was blue.
Maybe it's my aging eyes.
Mine too.
Maddie Whitfield, the Foxtrot flag is up on the race committee boat, code flag F. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the Foxtrot flag goes up at 7 minutes to the first start, so 3 minutes to the entry at 4 minutes. It gets a bit confusing in match racing because you're counting into the 4 minutes, so that's really your go time. So it's 3 to the 4 is what we would say.
3 to the 4.
I like that.
7-minute signal for the first match.
Indeed. So, and on this flight, as happens in semi-finals and finals, to make sure there's no advantage to being the starboard end boat or the port end boat, that all the boats will switch. So you had Peterson and Tapper, who were yellow last time. They'll be blue this time, and you got Callahan and Pinckney, who will be yellow this time.
So you say yellow. Those are the color of the flags that they carry on their leech of the mainsail. That's the trailing edge of the mainsail, and that color is what the race committee uses to identify the boat if and when they are over the line early and when they cross the finish line. So in a close match, we know who's actually won, and it's also the colored flag that the umpires use if they're going to penalize one yacht or the other. Now, for extra credit, can you tell me why the yellow flag comes in from the committee boat, and the blue flag, well, the yellow flag comes in from the committee boat.
Why don't we ask the person who wrote the rules, Tom Ehman?
This was not my idea, but the blue flag has been assigned to the boat entering from the left or pin end, and the yellow flag was assigned to the boat entering from the starboard or right end. Christine Gribben, do you know why? Because it was said the race committee were chickens, so they were always gave them the yellow. I'm not kidding, and that was not me that came up with that.
Oh, God.
So that was the mnemonic for how you remember which end is the yellow flag. That's the chickens of the race committee,
Chickens.
which, of course, are Ryan Davidson and Dr. Don Becker and the rest of their team are chicken of nothing, least of all the Curtonic Gov Cup commentators.
We ought to go over, I don't think we did yet today, but for those of you who are relatively new at this, when we're talking about the entry and the 4 minutes, they don't want the playground, as Dave Perry calls it, which is the an area from the starting line down, away from the wind. You can't enter the playground until 4 minutes, and you must enter within 1 minute, right, of the 4 minutes.
Within 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So that's what you'll see, the boats. You'll see them enter, and almost invariably you want to be right on it. And that's what's happening. So you can see the boats are sailing around outside right now. As we get close to 4 minutes, they'll be approaching their respective ends.
And Matt, what's the tactics, what's the strategy of getting into the pre-start area from your assigned end as quickly as possible?
So generally,
And here we go.
You do a 30-second rotation. So at 5 minutes, you have your bow on the committee boat, go for a tack over, sail away for 30 seconds, and then tack back. Quite a lot of teams, including myself, like to do maybe 28 seconds away, just in case the breeze drops off a little bit. So then you have 2 or 3 seconds to burn.
Just got a protest here from Callahan here in that dial-up. He thought that Jeffrey tucked a little close there.
And it's been green flagged by the umpires, so
Yeah.
they see no harm, no foul.
Yeah, I think yesterday there was one that I did think Jeffrey tacked a little close, but it was green flagged also. So, it's you want to tack close. You just don't want to tack too close.
One thing I've noticed today, guys, is the start line is a lot longer. It's lighter breeze and a longer start line. So that'll change, I guess, everyone's starting strategy. As opposed to yesterday, it was pretty hard getting to the start line early.
So what we just saw there was when Jeffrey Peterson and his team were down speed.
Callahan's been penalized.
They were down speed, and then Callahan tried to roll over the top and didn't quite make it.
Didn't make it.
Because you saw on Peterson's boat, they really threw the body weight around and really turned a lot. And so they reversed the situation and also managed to get a penalty on Callahan and team. So that was a great bit of boat handling there, achieving that.
I'm going to see the boats come together again. Peterson's going to see if he can maintain this control, and he basically wants to keep Callahan out to the left of the track here, over near the big
that's gonna be
VIP
another
boat.
Claim of a foul.
Just there from Peterson, so plenty of flags here. The umpires are busy.
Yeah, that looked.
That one was green.
So that was green
That
flag.
was green, boy.
Probably due to the umpires believe that Peterson's helm was not dead in the middle, so he was altering course as right-of-way boat.
Sometimes as an opponent in these races, you'll flag and know it's a green, but it's just adding a little bit more pressure on your opponent. It might make them rush the tack a little bit more or doubt themselves. So that's one other aspect too, that they might not be looking for a penalty, but it could be more so from stamping, I guess, their dominance or just trying to rattle their opponent.
So you see here Callahan's reversing out. One of the unique things, as we said yesterday in match racing, is you do not lose rights when you're reversing. But at some point they're going to need to go forward. So you see Jeffrey Peterson and his team are just going to sit just off the Callahan boat. They're going to sit around, and then as he decides he wants to go back upwind or to take that out, Jeffrey's going to come in and have a lot of hull speed. And if you have a delta in the speed between your boat and the other boat, often that gives you a lot of power.
Yeah, I think that's a nice match racing maneuver, but probably not appropriate in that particular situation. He would have hoped that Jeffrey would have stayed on starboard tack, went backwards with him, and Justin being the leeward boat, hoping that there was a mistake there. And now he's just stopped his boat. So right now, all the options are with Jeffrey. But if you want the left, I guess, Justin, if you just stay there and don't move, I guess that's one way to get it.
The risky thing for Justin here is by the time he accelerates or tries to accelerate, the boat is going to go sideways. So he's going to have a hard time trying to lay the pin end of the line. So that means when he goes upwind at about 40 degrees to the breeze, he might not be able to make it above this imaginary line called the pin end lay line.
As you can see, he's trying to go forwards now and just trying to pump the boat to get going forwards with his angle change and just really slipping sideways with the keel not working, like you said, Tommy.
20 seconds to go. Jeffrey's a bit early too. I think he's going to lay, but boy, Tommy, you're right. He went, just as we watched him there without speed, he drifted about a boat length or a boat length and a half to leeward.
And you could see Peterson and team were quite soft there. They weren't very aggressive coming in and trying to make something happen. Just kind of going with, well, he's already got a penalty, we'll get an even start, we back our boat speed. We've been sailing fast these last couple of days, this whole event. We got a penalty, let's just get a clean start, let's not risk it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's the first time we've seen Jeffrey not be, incredibly aggressive here, and I think in that situation, Matt, you're exactly right. That's definitely what I do. Just take it easy. Justin Callahan has a penalty, and we're faster anyway.
To say nothing of being up 2-1 in the series.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
The flip side of what Tommy said about the umpires, there is also the risk, however, of when you do, back on your comment a few minutes ago, Tommy, you do flick the flag a lot, you start pulling your Y flag out, you start to irritate the umpires and maybe give them the idea that he doth protest too much and we're going to green him just to...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can see some really good
Absolutely
grooving from
true.
Callahan right there. He's been able to go higher and same speed to force Peterson into the tack away. So he's managed to open up his options now. He's got to hope that he's got to keep those wheels compared to Peterson. Smart decision by Jeffrey to not stick there and lose little bits and just actually get out, get back up to hull speed, give you a bit of space.
Shall we come to this next pre-start between Tapper and Pinckney, the other semifinal? Cole Tapper is leading 2-1 over Pinckney, and they're in their pre-start head to wind in a dial-up, middle of the line. Green flag from the umpires.
So Morgan Pinckney is the yellow boat, Cole Tapper is the blue boat to the left-hand side.
In any dial-up, when you dial up on starboard, which you invariably will, the boat to windward has to just be really careful with its boat positioning. And in fact, he felt there that he was drifting in and so had to break off the dial-up. So the boats will go sideways when they're not going forward. Far enough away, nice move by Morgan to get onto starboard tack and go back and attack. Yeah, so very aggressive moves there by Morgan, but they're doing a good job, and their crew work is great because they kept the boat going through all that.
So we got 2 minutes 30, and they're at the committee boat now. So they're going to have to come around the media boat and probably use that as a pick and to come back to the line. So the first time this has happened today, and so we'll get some really good camera shots.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have our cameramen here, both fore and aft, so we'll get some good. Here they come around the boat here. So you can see what Tapper's trying to do is brush Morgan off and have the opportunity to jibe. Oh, he can do it anyway, but boy, that's close. That is a dangerous move to jibe onto starboard because he must do so far enough away that Morgan has an opportunity to keep clear. But well done, no penalty. Still almost 2 minutes, so still a long way. And what do you reckon, Matt? They're 20 seconds away from the line?
Yeah, 25 seconds is pretty light right now, but
Yep.
I think they're going to be running down to the pin end with that bias, so you probably want to add 35 onto that.
Yep.
So I'd quite like to be leading here. I think the left's pretty strong. Looks like good pressure, and from the Peterson and Callahan match, they both look wound on port tack right now. So, I think it's going to be all about fighting for this left end.
Yep.
Which Cole Tapper is ultimately controlling right now because he is the lead boat back. So Morgan Pinckney trying to force him down the line, trying to get a hook on him, but Cole Tapper just trying to slow the game down.
And again, a hook meaning he would be overlapped with Cole Tapper to leeward and thereby establish the right-of-way.
And be able to force Cole Tapper to tack onto port tack to avoid a windward leeward situation and get to the... But you see, Cole Tapper's done a really good job of getting the hook the other way, forcing Morgan Pinckney to tack out.
Okay, now this is really, if Cole had done just slightly better on that turn and come down, I think he would have prevented Morgan from jibing.
Exactly right.
but he did not. And so now with 37 seconds to go, still both boats early.
Do you both like the left side of the track?
Yeah, I think I do. Okay, so Cole right now just says, I'm going to stay away from him. So I still have clear air, and he can't lee bow me, which basically means it's going to happen to him anyway. But Morgan Pinckney a little forward, and to leeward, the wind will bounce off his sails and into Cole Tapper's sails once they come up. Still early.
Morgan
Still
doing
early.
a very aggressive luff here, so he's just really trying to clear out that space. He wants to split Cole off to the right-hand side.
And that's exactly what he did.
Interesting, guys. In the Peterson-Callahan race, Peterson passed Callahan when he got bounced right. But I think it has a bit more to do with Jeffrey's moting upwind. You know, we saw them go into a little bit more pressure. I saw Jeffrey drop a bit of traveller, tighten the main sheet a bit more, and all of a sudden they were powered up, fully hiking. And then the next time the boats came together, they crossed Callahan. So it's interesting. There are some, chances there in the right, but there's also big chances with your moting. You know, we talk about the boats constantly have to be re-geared as the wind drops or raises.
And one thing to note as well, these boats are coming right down, almost on the ley line for these leeward gates, and with the spinnakers up. So there's not going to be a lot of port jibe. So that's indicating there's been a bit of a right-hand shift, and it's really good for Peterson because he's going to have less time on port jibe where he's risking being covered by Callahan.
Okay, and so you can see what Peterson's doing now is basically, he did not get suckered in to jibing right under Callahan. He instead kept going a little bit, came out with great speed, and still has clear air.
So Peterson doing a reaching to reaching jibe, trying to keep the hull speed, keep it going, whereas Callahan trying to do slightly less distance, lower to lower jibes.
Yeah, it's not working for Callahan here. You're going to see a massive game from Peterson here. They've gone up jib super early on Callahan's boat. He sort of got low and slow trying to soak onto Peterson here, and he's having to do the drop. To me looks way too early.
Yep. Well, let's be fair here.
And Peterson does the smart thing there, rolls around onto port jibe just to cover off and really close down the leverage.
Okay, but just to be clear here, Jeffrey has 3 Rose Cups, 2 Governor's Cups, a bunch of World Match Racing Tour events, a Congressional Cup, incredible amount of experience. And as you know, I think in this discipline of the sport, experience is everything. This is Justin Callahan's really his 3rd major match race. He sailed in 2 Rose Cups and now this. And so I think, he's doing great, but it is not terribly surprising that Peterson has some edge. Justin had never sailed these boats, nor had his crew. Jeffrey has now done, 3 Governor's Cups in them. So, experience helps.
Indeed, as we're watching them go up, that is Peterson Callahan going up their 3rd of 4 legs, the second windward leg. Peterson leads the series 2-1 and is leading Callahan at the moment by a few boat lengths, plus the Callahan team owes a penalty before they finish. Matt, how do the penalties get taken? How many boat lengths in this condition, and so on?
So here, you probably take 4 or 5 boat lengths, give or take, to do a spin. However, from here where Callahan's behind, his aim has got to try and be just to get ahead slightly and then lay a mark trap at the top mark and then try and offset a penalty. So he'd probably be looking to cause a foul by Team Peterson, but first he needs to sail fast, get back into this race, get overlapped and get ahead of Peterson.
Okay, the other match is going into the top mark. Tommy's up there if he can hear us. Are they on the ley line? Looks like they're about to round.
Yeah, that's correct. Both boats are on the ley line, about 3 lengths, which is well within striking distance for to attack downwind here. So see if Pinckney can again narrow Tapper's lead. He managed to get from 10 lengths all the way back down to less than a metre in the previous race. This time he's gone around the top mark, not even 2.5 lengths behind. So we've got some tight matches now, as we knew we were going to have for the semis.
Tapper and the red and white kite leading, coming down their second leg 2, to the gate. Those of you who are, again, not super keen or super experienced match racing sailors, the gate terminates, it ends the second leg. They pass through the gate and may round either end of the two orange tetrahedrons that are set slightly to windward of the start-finish line. They can round either end and then begin leg 3 back upwind.
Yeah, so we have both Peterson and Callahan here coming in on what we call the starboard tack lane line. They're actually both overlaid. And you'll see the bowman here will start to get the spinnaker poles out and have the spinnaker brace, or the guy, I think you Americans call it, ready to go. So when they tack, you'll see the spinnaker pole get made, and they'll go straight into a windward hoist. So it's quite a big manoeuvre here because it's a big turn. But again, a beautiful hoist from Peterson.
And you could see Peterson stayed slightly high out of that just to avoid coming down onto Callahan, who was on starboard on the beat with him on port. So, just keeping it clean, trying to keep that penalty, just not taking too much risk there, giving away quarter of a boat length just to keep it clean. At the bottom of the course, we've got Cole Tapper trying to get breathing air out front on Morgan Pinckney with the black kite. So they're coming into the gate. Morgan Pinckney just trying to get far enough forwards to get onto Cole Tapper's breeze, but looks like Cole Tapper's spinnaker is very powered up right now, and he's just able to lead into these bottom marks.
The sets and obviously the drops are very important because it's somewhere around the track that you can gain a couple of lengths, or you can go the other way and lose quite a bit. Claire, your team was quite familiar in these boats. What do you think makes a great hoist?
Definitely having that pole on for the hoist is a lot easier to get the spinnaker popped, and the quicker you can get it up, the quicker you can get the jib down to then clear your air and get as much wind to the spinnaker as possible.
Well, Morgan did. I think Morgan definitely gained on that downwind. They've split, and you can hear the horns from the committee indicating a change of course. So they've moved the weather mark a bit. Yep, to the right. So it's it's trying to come right.
Started out at 150 degrees, and we're now to the west of south on 190, about 5 knots of breeze still. As that pair, Pinckney Tapper heading up their leg 3, Tapper in the lead. They're also in the lead in this series, 2-1 over Morgan Pinckney, Cole Tapper's team, that is.
You can see Morgan Pinckney and his team are really hiking hard upwind here. They're hiking hard like they're in 30 knots of wind. So it's really good here to see their crew just revving each other up and swinging low here. If they've got enough breeze to hike, they're giving it their all here.
But we're about to have a finish in this first semifinal. Peterson leading, coming in with a green-white kite, boat 6 over the purple-kited Callahan team. And they will go up 3-1 and take this semifinal.
Well, not a big surprise. Jeffrey Peterson will make it to the finals of his 3rd Governor's Cup, having won 1 and got 2nd last year. And big cheers from the VIP boat with all our wonderful sponsors.
And 2 really clinical races there from Peterson. Sailed really well this morning. They were coming off their first loss of the event in the final race yesterday, but they came out swinging. Came out with really good boat speed, good boat handling. So good to see them being on form this morning.
Absolutely. Well, it was fun.
Just at the top of the track here.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Tapper and Pinckney just crossing one another. Tapper at the moment holding about, again, 3.5 length lead. So still close enough here to have a bit of action downwind. They're in the middle of the course with another minute or so to sail of this upwind leg.
So Tapper just extending out on port, just wanting to make sure that he's fully ready for this top. Potentially thinks there's a little bit of a right-hand shift as he's given a decent amount of split to Morgan Pinckney right now.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that caused the split here was the other match here. We had another match using the same top mark, so that's created a little bit of a split in the course. And it's, apologies here, they're going to the yellow mark, so the red mark you might see is just getting picked up. to me, it looks like Pinckney may have made a little bit of a gain there. There's a little bit of a left, and I noticed Cole had to drop his crew into the middle of the boat, which says to me that they ran out of a little bit of breeze.
So with that change of course, they're going around the yellow mark, and it's going to be a square downwind, so about 50-50 on each jibe. So Morgan Pinckney's going to try and have to get as close as he can on port to attack on the jibe in, on starboard jibe coming back.
Pinckney's got to be careful here. His spinnaker, he's trying to get it ready to... Oh, he's having an attack here now, but his spinnaker was very close to being grabbed by the water, and
a really good set there by Cole Tapper and team. You know, getting the kite up, getting it popping, and the jib down really quickly just to extend on that. That was a really crucial part of the race where Cole Tapper's going full fast forward whilst Morgan Pinckney's having to do a double tack, a little bit slow.
yeah, it's pretty hard picking ley lines, you know, and you rely on the crew on board. There's been a penalty awarded to Tapper. It'll be interesting to hear what that's for, if that's a Rule 42.
He owes a penalty, Tapper does?
Yes, the umpires just put up a blue flag. Obviously the boats aren't close together.
Potentially he hit the top mark there.
I'll call the umpire.
But it seems like a long gap between giving him the penalty here. He'd already gone about 12 lengths.
Yeah, it does. Well, Tom's going to check in with the umpires. We'll get the
the
official word.
So now Tapper is about 5-6 lengths ahead, would you say, Tommy? So
yeah,
that means
agreed.
he's
About
right
5,
on
6.
the edge of being able to do his penalty.
To me, it looks pretty safe that he could do a penalty turn at the moment. But as we've seen, you know, down the bottom part of this run, a bad jibe or it could get pretty light, or particularly if Pinckney starts to get on his air, you know, he could run out of that lead, could get eaten away quite quickly. But at the moment, to me, it looks like he has enough room to do his penalty turn. Claire, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit touch and go here, but I guess if you're Tapper, what you want to be thinking about as well is keeping your boat to the left of Pinckney, so then just in case you need to do a penalty kill to try and wipe it that way, you're in a good position to do so.
And here Tapper and his team are going to be looking down the course to see which end of the finish line they think is biased. So the same start-finish line, which the port end has been biased on the start.
Yeah, the penalty on Tapper, please. Hull hit the mark at the windward mark.
Boy.
Copy, thanks. Hull
Okay,
hit the mark.
Tom Ehman has just told us that Cole Tapper hit the weather mark, which if you hit it with the boat or any crew member, that is a penalty. But talk about unforced errors, Tom. You know, with a lead like that, that's...
Well, Matt, do they have enough room here to complete the penalty before?
Morgan has come up with a puff. He's closer than he was, but we'll see.
Watch this.
Here we go.
This is a boat handling game now. Does Cole Tapp have the ability to get the kite down? Do his crew get the kite down and jib up and spin on a dime quickly enough?
This is great photography, guys. Thank you. This is great stuff from the drones. Okay, and you're about to see it here. Jib going up. And Matt, the spinnaker needs to come down, so the head of the spinnaker is?
The head of the spinnaker, the top part of the spinnaker, the top corner, needs to get below the gooseneck, which is in line with the boom. So the spinnaker's gone down, so they're going to spin round the pin here and then do a big back on the jib.
They're going to do it. They're going to get it.
Interesting there. Cole electing to do the penalty turn around the pin. We saw Jeffrey elect to not do it on the pin, but on the middle of the line. And given these, with the rudders on these boats, you can actually turn them all, you know, the complete whole way around. So you can do a bit of a flat spin right on the line, lose all your speed, but at least get your boat through that turn quickly and then hopefully drop below the line and look at the race committee nervously and hopefully see the flag that's on the back of your main be raised to signify that you got it done.
Well, I think, but you know, with due respect, when you have, you know, he obviously Cole felt he had enough of a lead. The nice thing about going around the pin is you know you've done it, because if you misjudge it without the pin there, they could find that you did not complete your turn. in time. So I think that was pretty wise.
That was textbook. That was
Yeah.
beautifully executed by Cole Tapper and his team, who now have won their semifinal 3-1. Cole Tapper from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia from Sydney, the yacht club that runs the annual Sydney Hobart race, one of the biggest yacht races, the Rolex, I should say, Sydney Hobart yacht race, one of the biggest ocean races in the world. Cole Tapper now will go through to the finals against Jeffrey Peterson, and I'm going to quickly go around and get your thoughts on this final match coming up, and then we're going to take about a, Chris, 10-minute break? Because we're still wrapping up the consolation matches. Let's go to the rowing boat and start with Claire and Tommy. What do you think of this finals between Tapper and Peterson?
Yeah, look, Tapper is a very accomplished match racer, and particularly quite strong pre-starter, so I expect to see a pretty lively pre-start between the two. I think Jeffrey, to me, seems to have quite a really good mode change. So, he's very accurate out of any downspeed manoeuvres, or if he cops any bad waves, or if there's a change in the condition, I think he's cruised quite onto it. So, I think Cole's either got to try and really shake up Jeffrey in the pre-starts, because if Jeffrey gets off the line with clear air, it's going to be quite tricky for him. Claire, what are your thoughts?
I think this will probably end up being some of the closest match racing we'll see this whole week, with two of our most experienced match racers. And yeah, Tommy's right, with Jeffrey, if he's hot on your tail, it doesn't really take much for him to get through you. So I think if Cole can get out in front with a good pre-start and be in front by a couple of boat lengths, he'll be in a good position to cover Jeffrey and hold a good lead there.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Tommy. Matthew?
Yeah, I think one of the little storylines that's quite interesting is Max Brennan, the kite trimmer on Jeffrey's boat, sails with Cole Tapper a lot down in Sydney. So, I think anything that Cole wants to try, Max probably has found out through their training together. So I'm sure he's relaying that, and Jeffrey will be relying on him to know the game. So yeah, that's a good little bit of an added thing. And I think Jeffrey's probably got a boat handling and speed edge. So I think I agree with Tommy. I think Cole needs to mix it up in the pre-starts and be really on it, and hope that he's able to be ahead off the line and then hold it from there.
Andrew?
Well, I think this was expected. If you had to pick the two favorites here, it would have been obviously Jeffrey Peterson and Cole Tapper, just because of his record. He's the newly crowned Australian Youth Match Racing Champion. We've had a great number. I think we had 17 wins by Australia and New Zealand teams in the Governor's Cup since we went international in 1988, I believe, or 89. So I think this is sort of expected. And again, experience is everything, and these are the two most experienced sailors in this whole group. I'm not about to predict who's going to win, but certainly with speed, Jeffrey so far has showed that he can be faster than anyone else when it counts.
There's a bit of a tear in a green and white kite there. Coming in, boat 4, Torre. But I'm sure that can be repaired. In the meantime, I hope that Anthony Chalmant, A-Train, is listening, and Christophe Chalmant, because we had a bit of a discussion about who the finalists might be. And I won't say who picked them, but I don't want to get my arm broken, my shoulder broken too much, like Maddie did earlier. But it looks like a terrific final, regardless of who you thought might be there. And let's, with that, let's take a, Chris, 10-minute break, did we decide? As they are finishing up the consolation rounds, Colquitt has now won that one. They have won their consolation. They will finish fifth, thank you, 2-1. And we'll update the others when we come back in about 10 minutes. Welcome back to the Pacific Ocean for the 56th Annual Governor's Cup hosted by Balboa Yacht Club. We have the first match of this is the consolation.
This is the putty final.
Petit finale, as they say in French, between Pinckney and Callahan. They've just entered into the pre-starts, just under 4 minutes to their start. Boat 9 is Morgan Pinckney, who lost his semifinal to Cole Tapper, and the other boat 8, is Justin Callahan. Boat 8, he lost his semifinal to Jeffrey Peterson. Andy, what do you think of this consolation match?
Well, we've seen this before, Tom. These two sailors are not only great friends, but they've sailed against each other in dinghies a lot, but they also have now been match racing for a couple of years against each other. And I believe, Tom, you would agree that last year, and Matt, at the Rose Cup year before this, their final was unbelievable. It was a 5-race final. Everyone was doing exactly the right thing. It was an incredible thing. So I think we're going to see a repeat of that.
Well, in 40 years of watching match racing,
Yeah.
That Rose Cup final was that up in Long Beach, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was just astonishing. To say nothing of a new Yale-Harvard rivalry.
Exactly.
A budding rivalry here.
So this is, I believe they call the football game the game. Well, this is the race.
The race. Explain why. Why is this Harvard-Yale?
Well, Yale, in the United States are both Stanfords of the East, and they.
I must spit out my coat.
Sorry. And, they're two of the oldest and most fantastic universities in the United States. They have an arch rivalry with Harvard being in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Yale being in New Haven, Connecticut. It's great. What's going to be exciting is Justin is just starting his second year at Harvard. Morgan will be starting his first year at Yale. So I guarantee the Northeast Intercollegiate Sailing Association stuff is going to be the most exciting, in the country right now. We got the boats right behind us here, as usual. Oh boy, you can see how close the maneuvering is. The seamanship here is really the seamanship is really important, because that maneuver that Pinckney just did, he probably missed the stern of Callahan's boat by a foot or foot and a half, but that's fine. He did it perfectly. So 134, they're still both boats arriving early at the line. Little hard to lay from down here, Matthew. You're going to have a hard time getting to the pin.
The breeze is quite left at the moment, so yeah, they're not too far from this port end ley line, maybe only 1 or 2 boat lengths up on it, so not a lot of space that they can go down. So you see Morgan Pinckney using a lot of tiller movement just to try and slow up, as Justin Callahan flies a flag saying, "I had to avoid you there."
Let's see what the umpires do.
And it's a green flag.
It's a green flag, and I think that's a good call. Okay, so both boats Justin realized he wasn't going to lay, and by that we mean can sail upwind and still get through the starting line to the left end. So now both boats coming this way. Justin with a little bit of an advantage here.
Yeah, Justin's got a slight advantage as he's able to pick, does he want to lead or follow, whereas Morgan has to just come back and let Justin make the call. So Justin elects to lead in, wants to kill time into this pin end. With 35 seconds to go, they're maybe 20 seconds from the pin end of sailing.
I'll tell you, they're still really close to not laying. Justin needs to worry about it's good to drag Morgan down. It wastes some time, but if he can't lay the line, he's in a bit of trouble.
He should be able to just shoot up head to wind with a bit
17 seconds,
of speed.
both boats still early.
So here, Morgan will probably try and tack over, build his speed on port.
Yep, here he
and
comes.
Justin will build his speed on starboard, so another split tack start.
Which is, again, with good match racers, you very seldom see what we call a slam dunk start. So both boats starting with speed, one going to the left, one going to the right. The wind has gone to the right, which is a pretty typical condition here, but I don't think it'll come up like if it were clear, but still a great start.
If you're just rejoining us, we're in the Pacific Ocean about, 300 meters off of Newport Beach, California, on a splendid afternoon of racing. We're just beginning the first to win 2 consolation series between the two teams that unfortunately did not win their semifinal matches. Morgan Pinckney from Newport Harbor Yacht Club and Justin Callahan from the Biscayne Bay Yacht Club in Florida. Terrific sailors, great friends, and we're going to enjoy this petit finale, as we say in match racing.
Well, let me add just a little bit. Justin Callahan and his crew came by the boat, our base media boat here, earlier, and I was able to say a few words to him. And I said, "Sorry, guys, but that was, you guys really sailed well and the whole thing." They said, "That's all right," and they all had smiles on their faces. "We'll just get third." And for a first-time Governor's Cup enter
That's a hell of a performance.
with 2 more years in the Governor's Cup, if I were a betting man, I would bet that Justin will win this at
You
some
think
point.
there's a win in his future?
I think there's a win in his future.
And his brother's future?
Yeah. And Justin said, "Well, of course we'll be back if we're invited." And I said, "Well, I don't know. We'll see. But I guarantee he'll be invited."
Justin Callahan sailing with Liam O'Keefe, Mitchell Callahan, and Danny Riano. They're friends but rivals in this. Petit Final Morgan Pinckney driving for his team representing Newport Harbor Yacht Club. Mark Murray, Max Mayall, and one of only 2 females in this series, Alex McCoy. We had Alex along with Brooke Wilson on the stage this morning in the morning show. Terrific stuff.
Okay, so here we go with the first race of the finals. So this is it. First team to 3 points. The reason we say that, Tom, instead of 3 wins?
Well, we say 3 points only because the umpires, as we've seen this week, can add or subtract points for infringements. If, for instance, one of the teams maybe wins the race, but in the meantime had a collision that resulted in damage, the umpires can deduct a point for that and other reasons. So it really is 3 points, not just 3 wins.
Thank you, Tom. It's a little bit technical, but it is important because, as you said, Tom, we've seen it. Jeffrey Peterson hit Morgan Pinckney a couple days ago and, in fact, won the race, but that point was deducted, so both boats had 0 points from that race.
So with 2 minutes to go, the boats are circling around pretty close to the start line here with only 30 seconds of sailing back to the line. So they're trying to achieve position. Do they want to lead to the pin end or the starboard end and get the other boat where they want and force them to the unbiased end of the finish line?
So here they come towards us with our great camera people on the bow and stern here. Sometimes I know match race starting looks like, what people that don't really like basketball but like basketball only watch about the last 2 minutes because it's the most exciting part. Sort of the same here, but...
Well, you watch only the first 2 minutes?
No, the last 2 minutes.
I like everything about match racing. I have since I was a kid and since we watched the America's Cup growing up. And here are some kids that would be sailing in the America's Cup if we were sailing in traditional monohulls, proper yachts, Andrew.
In proper yachts, that's absolutely true. I mean, these, look at what we produced here at this, at this regatta. I mean, Nick E.J. was the world champion 2 years out of his Governor's Cup wins. Okay, still no advantage. With 1 minute exactly to go now, using the committee boat at that point as a pick, which is another basketball term, actually.
And so you can see Cole Tapper coming in on starboard with Jeffrey Peterson on port. Looks like Jeffrey wants to win the pin, so he's going to look to lead back and try and scrub time.
40 seconds to go, still both boats, 10 seconds from the line, so.
It's quite interesting, guys. The first match, we saw a split tack start, and we saw Pinckney get the boat and head right upwind in a massive split. And he sort of under-tacked Callahan there, so it sort of says to me that maybe the left may have won.
Well, you're going to see the same thing here, Tommy. Tapper tacking onto port, both boats with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Both boats. Jeffrey will have a little more speed out of this, but Cole's coming up to speed rather quickly. So just, almost a carbon copy of the last start. And again, not expected. When you get to the top of the fleet, the match racers are so good, you will seldom see one that when there's a crucial mistake made and there's a big lead at the start. So we'll see which side is favored here.
The first race of the finals of the 56th Annual Governor's Cup, Cole Tapper from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia in Sydney, going out to the upwind right. Jeffrey Peterson from the home team, the home club, Balboa Yacht Club, heading in a big split to the upwind left early in this first match of the finals. It's first to win 3.
So you can on the top of the race course where the petite final is, it's very, very light just up at the windward mark. So that's going to come down to this finals race. So they're going to have to be doing a lot of mode changing, as we saw in the semi-finals earlier today. Jeffrey Peterson and his team have been really good at just doing those micro adjustments as the pressure changes. So that's one thing to note, that these crews are constantly having to change this right now. It's right on the edge, maybe 3, 4, 5 knots. So you can see Peterson's team are all 3 on the side, whereas Tapper has 2 boats in. So a little bit more pressure for him there. Maybe he's changed his grooving a bit better.
So that's
the damage. That's where it gets done here. Once you see Jeffrey Peterson get all 3 crew on the side of the boat and just get it rumbling, all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 lengths just added.
Yep. And he's
this is going to be a cross by Peterson.
Yep.
By quite a lengthy margin. Apologies. Interesting enough, at the top, it looks like Morgan Pinckney managed to lead around that top mark, and he actually went right upwind. But I think Callahan ended up overlaying. He went all the way out, sort of like a multi-hull sailor, and just elected to do one tack upwind.
Well, let's talk about why Cole, again, we saw a big split. And as all of you know by now, I am not a big favor as a match racer. I'm not in favor of having big splits. I think both at that point were saying, well, we think maybe there's going to be a righty in Cole Tapper's mind. And I think Jeffrey sort of knew that the left, at least at first, is going to be good. And it's resulted in quite a big lead. Even if you're slightly behind at the start, I never want to get out of touch with the other boat, Matt. I don't know about you, but it's these big splits are a little worrisome.
Yeah, even if you're 99% confident one side's going to work, if you're between the other guy and the mark, you're 100% ahead, but there's that 1% chance.
That is an excellent line. I agree with you. You're 100% ahead.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, if you think you can do good boat handling, good tacks, because you're going to be doing a lot of tacks in the same water, always stick with them. But the modern way is a lot less tacks, maybe a lot to do with when the World Match Race Tour went to multi-hulls. That changed how people thought about the tactics and evolved and made good decisions and won events due to different tactics.
Yeah, well, since there are no tactics, basically it just go really fast and hit that side.
I didn't say there was no tactics.
No, I know.
That's your job to complain about multi-hulls.
But this is a close match. Look at Callahan and the purple and white kite now starting to haul in.
Yeah, back to the Petit final.
In the Petit Finale here, closing into the gate. Again, these are 4-leg courses. Windward, leeward, windward, leeward. Start and finish line is the same. And the end of this second leg that the teams are in the Petit Finale are coming into now is a gate. 2 orange tetrahedron marks.
Callahan trying to soak down as low as he can just to get onto Pinckney's breeze, and Pinckney trying to come up just to keep his kite powerful. You can see it's still pulling now, but at some point it might drop down and let Callahan get that extra boat length he needs.
Do you think Callahan can get down to it?
Callahan should be able to get within the 2 boat length circle.
Right.
So once he's within 2 hull lengths of the mark, Morgan Pinckney must give him room, and you saw Morgan Pinckney realise that and get away early and not try and sit in his dirty breeze for too long.
Exactly. So that's an imaginary circle around the mark, 2 boat lengths away. Once the boat inside, intending to round to starboard, as Callahan is, they have room. The other boat cannot keep them from doing that.
And there's and you see there Morgan Pinckney got a really good mark rounding, carried the speed in and came out really fast. So he was able to. He maybe was getting rolled, bailed out early, and just made sure that he sailed the boat as fast as possible and moving on to try and attack again on this beat.
Meanwhile, back up at the top mark, let's go to Tommy and Claire.
Yes, at the top mark, Jeffrey Peterson's just hoisted. Textbook set from him. Tapper had to do an extra tack, so an extra manoeuvre, which is costly in the light. We're going to see Peterson come around the mark with probably about a 30-second lead here at the moment. So the big question, can Tapper do what no one else has done and overtake Peterson downwind? Because Peterson seems to be the one who showed us that he can be behind and overtake someone, but we're yet to see anyone really put some heat on Peterson downwind.
If I were a betting man, I would say they will not.
Well, that's a big lead.
Although if there was any conditions that you'd want to be trying to gain big mounts, it's these conditions where slightly lighter pressure with new breeze coming left, right and centre. So if you can get 2 knots more breeze, you can maybe double your hull speed.
Yep.
And that big lead can evaporate quickly.
A good point also, Matt. I've just noticed I was watching these two boats in the Petit Finale, and the wind is phasing. And by that I mean basically it was when they came out of here and around these gates, the wind had gone right slightly. Now the wind's gone back a bit to the left. So quite often in some sailing areas you'll see a phasing breeze every 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. The breeze will go left, then it'll go back to the right, and I think that's what you're seeing here. And I would expect that in these kind of conditions.
We just had Tapper do a jibe in front of us here, and probably wasn't their best jibe here. Claire, as these boats go through these manoeuvres and do a jibe, what does the trimmer have to do to try and get the spinnaker set on the new side?
So it's really important in this light stuff to get that pole out to help you get the spinnaker set. And you're talking to your helm a lot about angles to try and get that right angle out of the jibe, so then you can get it rolling. Because you can see here, Cole probably lost about a boat length or two because he just didn't quite have enough air in that spinnaker coming out of the jibe to fill it properly.
Tommy, I think Claire just made a really good point, and it's true of boats of any size that have more than, other than single-handed boats, that a lot of times, you know, the helmsman has a whole bunch of things in the helmsman's mind or helmswoman's mind, and it is really important that your crew say, you're a little low, heat her up. It's basically the term we use, heat her up a little bit. Okay, you have a nice puff here. Come down, and also the crew can look backward a little bit, say there's a puff coming in 5.
Let's go back up to the Petit Finale. We've just got, it's very close. It's closed right up there.
That's correct, Tom. We just saw a dial down then, and Pinckney just tacked in front of Callahan there. We saw a flag go up, so the umpires, I'm not sure if they've made a decision yet.
Pinckney heading to leeward on the right as we look up the track. Heading, are they on the ley line, Tom?
Yes, it appears so. Yeah, they're on the ley line, and Pinckney is deciding to sail above the top mark just to make sure that Callahan is having to live in his gas. So we've seen this before where as the leading boat, instead of going to the top mark and setting, he's actually going to keep the boat behind him in his gas longer, and eventually he'll find a point where he goes, okay, we've heard him enough here, we're going to bear away and proceed to the top mark.
So at first, Tom, they won't gain much, but once they bear away, they will gain close to a boat length.
Back down here at the gate.
Yeah, big gains to Peterson here again. Yeah. He's actually extended his lead on that leg here, and he's elected to go around the left-hand mark. So what you'll probably find here is if Tapper goes around the right-hand gate, as he goes for his drop, Peterson will tack. And we can see that happening now. Peterson has seen that Tapper's elected to go around the right-hand mark, so what he's going to do is position himself between his and the top mark, so he's going to try and get directly upwind of him.
Andy, the wind has gone around from 190 when we started out today at 11:30 Pacific. It's now around to the right at 210.
I'll bet it's come back. I'll bet it's come back.
Has it gone back?
What do we got right now?
200.
200. So we've
you're
gone
right.
10 left. I don't think it's going to be much more than this, Tom. It's just something, and I just never got a chance to look at the weather map, but when we had an early westerly this morning, which died.
Yes.
And it was hot, it was humid, and there were a lot of cloud cover. That is not typical southwester conditions here.
So you can see Justin Callahan just round in the top mark right now. He really got hurt on that ley line there. Morgan Pinckney did a great job of staying high, slowing him up, and then spitting him out. So Morgan Pinckney went from being pretty much bow to bow to maybe 5 lengths ahead. So really good move there, just by making sure that you just gap out and just sail to the boat. Doesn't matter when you get to the finish line, just get there faster than the other boat.
But it's gotten very light and therefore very puffy. And so now the tables have turned. So now the boat behind sometimes will have an advantage. It will get a puff, be able to sail down to Morgan Pinckney, and then start to use tactics again to try to pass him.
We promised to update you on the other consolation matches. Colquitt did win 5th place overall, beating Bernal 2-1. Max Paul takes 7th place, beating Torre 2-1. And the Hyde boys, Josh Hyde from the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, winning their consolation match against Alec Coleman from Canada, 2-1, finishing 9th.
Which is, again, no disgrace. With this fleet, that is, they all sailed very well. And, Coleman had a really good day, I think the second day.
Yes.
Colquitt could have made the semifinals with one additional race. It's been a terrific series, and all these teams have done great. I'm just only sorry, Tom, that a lot of, like Alexander Colquitt and Alec Coleman, are 22, so they won't be able to come back to us.
Well, the team that probably had the toughest time was the Irish team of Tom Higgins. They managed not to win a race, but they had a lot of close finishes.
Yep.
They ended up 12th overall. And then Timothée Rossi from France, he only won, a handful of races, 4 or 5 races from memory, and they end up 11th. Christine tells us they won 5 matches. In the rounds robin.
So you can see Jeffrey continuing to extend his lead, long way ahead. So him and his team just keeping the boat moving fast. You see the crew weight, Max Brennan in the middle there, just moving left and right all the time, squeezing on any little puff, just changing those modes really quickly through any chop, any difference in pressure.
I have noticed with Tapper on this upwind, he's actually gone a little bit better through the water, even though Jeffrey has, I wouldn't say the lead has gotten any bigger on this leg now with these extra tacks at will, but Tapper seems to be matching a little bit more, particularly with his mainsail, Jeffrey Peterson's trim. Max is always, I've noticed on some of the boats, they seem to have the Traveller all the way up and quite a lot of twist. Peterson's a little bit lower on the Traveller and a little bit more sheet tension. So when the pressure does come in and they've got the pace, he is able to hold a bit more main sheet without what we call choking it in this light breeze. So sometimes, just because you keep pulling the sail on doesn't mean you go faster. And, sometimes it will make you go considerably slower. So that will be something that Tapper can be a little bit happier about. That to me looked like he was going a little bit better on this second beat.
Okay, so we're coming into the finish here with Morgan Pinckney and Justin Callahan. And Morgan has indeed, Justin caught him up a bit, but not enough. It will not prove to be enough.
Really good jive there by Morgan's boat, just rolling the boat round, keeping the spinnaker driving forwards and giving a lot to press off the outside. Just doing exactly what we saw Jeffrey Peterson do to Justin Callahan in the semi-final there, just really spinning the boat and keeping a lot of load in it to squeeze out, almost treating it like an asymmetric rather than a symmetric kite.
So these two have sailed in either a petit finale or a final match against each other now twice. And Jeffrey has prevailed both times, but I'll tell you what, Morgan. And Morgan told me that he said, you should have seen the match at the Rose Cup this year if you thought last year was good. They're just really good competitors and really good friends. So, first one to Morgan, but I wouldn't put, what do you think? This isn't going to be 3-0, I don't think.
I think it'll be first 2, so it's not going to be 3.
Yeah, right.
You can't make a mistake if you got it different, Andy.
Andy, what is the Rose Cup?
I don't know. The United States Youth Match Racing Championship for the Rose Cup, which I did not name after myself. It was named after me. But actually, we started the Rose Cup here at Balboa Yacht Club in 2010 as a national, invitational regatta, because we were looking at the, results of the Governor's Cup for quite a few years, and the podiums were dominated by the Australians and New Zealanders, with the occasional Pommy like Matt, involved there. And so we thought, well, let's have another event that, young match racers in America can do. It started off great thanks to Dave Perry, who was not only a 5-time U.S. match race champion, but the chairman at the time of the match racing committee. In 2015, it became a national championship, and it gets better every year. The competition gets better. The two guys that we saw last year, Tom, I think we would have predicted to get first and second, and instead Chapman Peterson from Stanford got first. So we're building a new generation, I think, of match racers, and I think it's working.
Well, and Bravo Zulu to you and Dave Perry and several others who've made that all happen in the last decade. As we return our attention up to this finals match between Cole Tapper and Jeffrey Peterson. Coming down their fourth and final leg, Jeffrey Peterson well and truly in the lead here with the green and white kite. He is well to leeward, even though it looks maybe from our vantage point he's a bit astern, but well to leeward, well further down the track. And let me ask you, Andy, do you remember last year whether Jeffrey won his first match or not against Jordan Stevenson from New Zealand?
You know, I don't remember. I'm sorry to say.
Do you remember, Christine?
Just a minute. Ken Sherb, our
Crack spotters.
Sailor Ken, will tell us here in a minute. I think he may have.
I think he did. Just from memory, I was thinking he also won his first match, and then Jordan Stevenson came back.
Came on.
And won, what, 3-2?
Well, he would have won 4 races except 2 were. Stevenson won the first race, okay. Then Jeffrey came in, and actually that's true. He won it, Jordan Stevenson, who is, by the way, a terrific guy, terrific sailor from New Zealand, who is actually has a real job now in finance and stuff, but was really almost came out of semi-retirement to sail in his last Governor's Cup last year and did really well. And he's a great guy and a great representative of New Zealand and the squadron, Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. But then there were 2 races where, as you remember, one, Jordan was about to go 3-0 and win the Cup, and he sailed into a kelp patty that he could have stepped off on. So that was first. And then second, there was a little bit of a screw up at the gate. And again, Jordan was way ahead, and Jeffrey protested and won that. So they had to resail that race. And finally he won. So it was 3-1 to Jordan Stevenson.
Yeah, that kelp patty, you would have thought we were sailing in San Diego.
I know.
That day, not here in Newport Beach. Tommy Spithill, Claire, and Tommy, what do you think in a professional series here in baseball and hockey and basketball? We think the team that wins the third match often is the team that ends up winning. How often does the team that opens with a victory go on to win?
Yeah, I'm not too sure on what the statistics are for that, but it's certainly a great confidence booster, and particularly if you win a race by a lengthy margin, you may make your opponent then start to guess all their settings. So, the question they've got to ask themselves, hey, are we quick? Why did we lose by that much of a margin? Was it a boat speed issue? Did we go the wrong side of the track? So, I think it's easy if you lose a race by, half a length, you go, okay, look, we've got it. We've just got to tidy up these sort of things. But it'll be interesting for Tapper and their crew to compose themselves after this and figure out how they're going to, have a go at Peterson here. Peterson won the start. I don't know, Cole, I've seen him do some excellent pre-starts in his time. So this will be a big test for him here to see how he comes back. And the wind is now getting even lighter. So
got a bit of a puff down here, but remember, Tommy and Matt and Tom, that in the semifinal match, Tapper lost his first race.
That's right.
And immediately recomposed themselves. It was like it never happened, and went on to have a rather substantial victory in the second race. So, that's totally possible. I think right now, if I'm a match race tactician, we did in the Canada's Cup trials one year, we knew we were slower than the other boat, and that is the worst feeling in the world. So we went after the other boat at the start pretty aggressively. And I blew it, to be perfectly honest. But we didn't think we had any other chance. We figured that was the only way we're going to beat him, is to pound him at the start. I don't think Cole is there yet, but it's tough. I mean, Tommy, you were spot on. That's exactly what they're thinking is, oh, my God. But a better story for me is the Congressional Cup. We lost the last race before the race that was the most important, and we were doing exactly that second guessing. We were saying, God, is our tuning, what did we do, the whole thing? But then we regrouped and came back and won the Congressional Cup. So, it can go either way. But the psychology in this sport could be pretty awful, or pretty good.
Thanks, Matt, or Andy rather, and Tommy. Let me ask Coach Claire Costanza, if she were coaching her fellow Aussie, Cole Tapper, right now, you pulled up alongside him in the rib, which isn't exactly permitted here in Gov Cup, but nonetheless, if you could, Cole Tapper was getting some advice. How's my alliteration here? The coach, Claire Costanza, and I didn't even go to Stanford.
Yeah. So
what advice, Claire, would you give him?
I think I'd take a leaf out of my coach Tommy's book and share a funny story. So that's what Tom used to do to us. Usually they were offshore related, and not sure if any of them are appropriate for air, but you might have to ask him later.
Well, tell us your best one that we can go to air.
Even if it's
leave
marginal.
it to Tommy to pick the most appropriate.
Even if it's marginal, Claire, go ahead.
Oh, look,
What
we're
the hell?
having microphone issues here. Sorry, guys. You're starting to lose me.
Tommy, what Coach Spithill, what advice would you give Cole and Co?
Look, I'd say to Cole, you know, what we saw on that second beat, that we actually started to see him. I actually thought he came at Jeffrey midway up that beat. You know, he looked actually quite powered up to leeward, was in a nice mode. Jeffrey, uncharacteristically, was in a bit of a high slow mode, which you normally don't see. But so in saying that, you know, you can go. At least he knows that Jeffrey is human. He makes mistakes, and Cole, you know, he's got a pretty amazing scorecard. Given how his age and how much match racing he's done, he's got quite the reputation of being a very good pre-starter. So I think, you know, for this one, maybe we're going to see a little bit more fireworks in the pre-start. You know, I'd say, look, don't forget about the bigger picture here, which is getting off the line, going the right way. But try and rattle Jeffrey a little bit in the pre-start, but he's got to be careful to not rattle himself. You know, these light, as the wind gets lighter, it feels like the pre-start, you know, is a lot shorter because you don't have as much time for all these manoeuvres. So it's all about leading back to that pin end. We saw Jeffrey get off that pin end in good shape, and then the next time he crossed 6 lengths ahead. So it just shows how important getting off this line is, and at the correct end. You know, which at the moment it seems the left has been rewarding those who start there.
Now, Matt Whitfield, take your Washington commentary cap off and put on your coach's cap. You are a winner. You've won many match racing, national championships and otherwise, and you're now Jeffrey's coach. You know Jeffrey very well. How would you advise him?
I think being Jeffrey's coach right now is probably the easiest job in the world. Just keep doing what you keep on doing. You know you're fast. Don't push it too much. Just get off the line. You know, you've done well off the pin end. I personally think the pin end and going left is going to work more times than it doesn't. So I think I'd be saying you want to start towards the pin, win the pin, and just sail fast, sail clean.
Andy,
we should say, Tom, that Jeffrey crewed for Matt
yes,
in one of his youth UK championships.
Exactly. And I was just going to say, Andy, you have known him longer than any of us, literally since he was, a toddler.
Yep.
And would you, Andy, he sails with you on It's Okay, a fair bit of the time he's going to sail with you next week in the 12-meter World Championship on Defender. Would you tell Jeffrey to cool it and not be so aggressive in the pre-starts, or just, as Matt said, just do your thing?
I think he's already done that. I'm seeing a little more conservatism today, which I think is great. I agree with you. I'd say, good job, Jeffrey, keep it up. You know, I don't know. I don't think I'd tell him anything, but because I think we've already seen that. Because I asked him yesterday about, do you think occasionally you're maybe being too aggressive and stuff? He was very smart today. He knew, okay, I'm ahead, and I seem faster. I don't need to do that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm going to be, I'm not going to let anybody get me. But on the other hand, I don't need to make those last-minute, very quick maneuvers and risk any kind of penalty.
Well, that's what I mean. I think I would suggest, and if I were Jeffrey, I'd say, it looks like our boat speed's pretty okay. Our boat handling has been pretty okay.
Yep.
I mean, more than that.
More than that.
And let's just not risk a collision. Let's not be too aggressive. Let's not also, fold up our tent and,
right.
and
Well, I think it's I call it the Nevin Snow method. And Nevin, of course, has won 2 Governor's Cups. And he would tell you he was never the greatest match racer as far as pre-start. But he said we always wanted to be fast.
He was quick.
He
San
was
Diego
quick.
Yacht Club, great junior
Terrific
program
sailor.
down there. Yeah,
great 49er sailor and a great guy. I mean, just his whole family is, one of the big sailing families in San Diego. And so it worked. I mean, fast is generally going to win. So we'll see.
How many times has the slower boat won the America's Cup?
I would argue twice. Once,
Maybe.
I think Intrepid in 70 was slower than Gretel 2.
possibly.
And then I think Commodore Vanderbilt with, which boat was it? The
That was
J-boat?
34.
Yeah.
That was the 34 J-boat series,
Right.
1934. And yeah, probably. But, Intrepid, when Ficker was quicker, and probably Peter McDonald and his wife Dion, who is of course Bill Ficker's daughter and dear friends of ours, two of the nicest people in the sport. And he was one of Bill Ficker, Newport Harbor Yacht Club,
tremendous.
one of the nicest people. Likes the late great Sir James Hardy, whom you eulogized this morning in a pre-recorded message that we're going to send down to the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron.
But I really think Intrepid that year was a bit slower. Intrepid was designed by Olin Stevens, who of course designed a whole bunch of America's Cup winners. But that year they had Britt Chance redesign the boat, and I'm not sure. It'd be like somebody taking a paintbrush to a Van Gogh or something like that. And I think the boat was slower, but I think Bill and his team, Steve Van Dyke as tactician, a lot of great sailors on the boat, I think they just outsailed the Aussies. I think Gretel too is one of my favorite 12s. She was fast, especially in the light.
Andy, you mentioned Britain Chance. I've actually got a 5.5 designed by the great Britain Chance Jr.
All right. Well, Britt Chance was really good at 5.5 design. Why don't we just leave it at that?
Okay, now you got to tell the story.
Okay. He
Mariner.
also designed, well, I already told that yesterday about Turner. Higher and faster. It's going to be a long summer. Ted Turner was assigned to steer the yacht Mariner, which was a 12-meter, and Britt, all those boats back then were tank tested. In other words, they put models of the boat into a towing tank, basically, and get a bunch of results from that, basically mathematical results, how's it doing, and then they change their design and tweak it to try to make it good. Well, he decided that if you ever seen any boat underwater, but especially a 12-meter, the ones at the time were coming back to sort of a bustle aft on which the rudder was attached, an aft rudder, right? Well, Britt Chance decided that, the tank says that the water's going to come off there smoothly anyway, so why don't we just cut it off?
The bustle.
The bustle.
Exactly.
And so literally it had a square stern, and I described it, it's a good thing they weren't drinking beer on the boat because they'd throw over an empty and would follow them around all day. The boat was a dog, or what we call a woofa. It was just wrong, and it was something that the tank showed was fast. It was not fast. Britt was trying to do something radical. I sailed on another one of his radical boats with the late Bowker and I decided was the worst. Peter Bowker, that we decided was the worst yacht we'd ever sailed on. It was a 60-foot plywood owned by Dick Williamson from the Fort Worth Boat Club. It was a 60-foot plywood boat that you'd start sailing in about 15 knots of breeze, and the bow was on port and the stern was on starboard. And it was a dagger border. At that, it was a Britt Chance dagger border.
Yeah, but I'm not going to let you off the hook on Mariner. Let's go back to Mariner because they did have that.
I'm not going to tell you what Turner said.
I'm going to. The
All right.
squared off underbody
Yep.
in the back end, and it was radical. Nothing else like that had ever been designed. Right. And Ted Turner, after struggling with the boat, finally went to Britt Chance, and he was a brilliant guy. I mean, the guy
he was
a brilliant designer, and he said, "Britt, even a turd is pointed at both ends.
Even turds are tapered."
Tapered.
Yep.
And Britt Chance, thereafter, shall I say it, was forever known as the German word is Scheisse.
Well, and there are some
Scheisse
people
Britty.
around that named him instead of Britt Chance. It was called Pretty Chancey.
Yeah.
But he designed some brilliant boats,
He did.
and to Tom's credit, he designed some world champion 5.5 meters.
Yeah.
He was really good at the meter boats, except for 12s, obviously. But anyway, interesting times. Sorry for, talking about all this old stuff, but the America's Cup was really important to a lot of us.
It still is to some.
Yeah.
Matt, the Foxtrot flag has just disappeared off the yard arm on the race committee boat. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the Foxtrot goes up at 7 minutes and comes down with no sound signal at 6. So that means we've got 2 minutes to the 4 minutes. So we got probably 1:30 to the 4 minutes. So 5:30 total. And at 5 minutes they will put Newell Pennant 1 up.
So about 1:40 till the entry. That was a little confusing there.
That was something else. Get him a coffee, a strong espresso, maybe a doble. Andy, your couple, I just saw a Coors beer sponsor. It was not Bud Light. It was a Coors beer sponsor flew over here.
Yeah?
Is that one of your new sponsors
No.
for the Gov Cup?
No, it's a youth regatta. Some of these people are not 21.
I know. This is flight 7 technically, and we're coming up in 3 seconds to that 5-minute signal. There it is, numeral pennant 1, white flag with a red ball, red circle in the middle. That is the 5-minute signal to the start of the Pinckney Callahan match. Match 2. Pinckney is leading 1-0 in their petit finale.
So Matt has just done another investigative job, and he says the current, like yesterday, is going from the east here, which you would think was south. It's not. From the east going to the west, which can affect, especially if the two boats get close to the committee boat in the last few seconds, that can affect things without question.
And particularly with this light pressure as well, the breeze has probably dropped off another knot or two. Tom will probably still tell us it's 11, 12 knots, but it's pretty light out there, maybe 3 knots. So
it's more than 3.
So they're really going to have to worry about if they get down speed, they're going to be on a moving carpet.
Matt, what force is the wind?
Probably 2.
Force 2. We can agree on that.
On the Beaufort scale,
it is not a gale.
It is far from a gale. Well, that's a really late tack.
Boat 9 is Pinckney. Boat 8 is Callahan.
Okay, a very short dial-up, an immediate tack onto port tack, and now they're coming back up. Yeah, you're right, Matt, with the delay, it's...
So you see Morgan Pinckney trying to reverse out just to break up this dial-up finally. Callahan did a good job of peeling onto port quickly just to be able to hold and control there. He wasn't holding on starboard, so get onto port and stop Morgan getting over the top. And a really good bit of body weight movement there on Callahan's team just to really speed the boat up from stop there.
Actually, why don't you talk about that? These boats are so light that kinetics, basically, and you're not allowed to do everything you want to do, but are really important. Doing a jibe, a roll jibe.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things, which is the difference which we've seen all week with Peterson and the rest of the teams, is their team throws their body weight around more. Like, they're only 3 up, but they really, really move their body weight in sync. They make sure that they throw the boat in the right direction, help it spin, reducing the amount of rudder.
Still lots of time. 2:10 coming up here. Lots of time, both boats above the line. They'll be approaching us.
Matt, you mentioned
we've seen
Jordan. So you mentioned for Jeffrey Peterson's boat kinetics, and remember last year with Jordan Stevenson, he was someone that could really push downwind, quite hard. That was very evident between those two teams, and this year I've just been sort of looking for that person that is close to Peterson in that, and we've seen Pinckney every now and again get it right, but the accuracy out of these down speed manoeuvres is what's going to really win these races, in these lighter races.
Well, Tom, let's talk about, after this start, let's talk just briefly about Rule 42 when the wind comes up like it did yesterday, and what you can and cannot do downwind. Let's talk about that in a minute here. We've got 1:13, both boats still very early to this start, both boats still seeking the advantage. Morgan Pinckney so far controls the left. Again, they're getting close, Matt, to not laying that left end if they go down any farther. They'll just make it now, but...
Yeah, so although they're quite low in the box, the current, like we just said, is making more of a difference now. The hull speed's a little bit lower. That maybe buys them half a length or so, but you can see Morgan Pinckney trying to burn high, get Justin Callahan to get some dirty wind, and so as he can go down and run down to the pin end, and Justin Callahan, he hopes, is not going to be able to touch him.
Still, they're way early at that end too, so both boats only about a boat length below the line, going down to the line with 20 seconds to go.
You'd quite like to be a Harvard fan right now.
Yep.
Yeah, is Morgan going to try to live down there?
Oh, boy.
So Morgan's got a tough decision. Does he try and build on starboard or port? Starboard, he doesn't have a lot of runway to do it, so he's going to really have to work the boat well just to get it moving. Justin Callahan had so much space down at this end to get full hull speed.
But Justin was right at the pin and had to turn his helm very hard
Pinckney.
to be sure. I'm sorry, Pinckney, to be sure he laid it. And boy, that slows the boats down.
That was, didn't we call that sorcery, or Tommy called that sorcery
Yeah,
at the
there was
pin
a little
yesterday?
more Pinckney sorcery at the leeward end.
He did a pretty good job there to, not end up stuck on the pin. You could see he was super aggressive with the tiller there.
Yeah, but
I
it
would have
stopped
thought maybe
it.
the crew might have used the jib to help bring the bow away, but sometimes in those instances there, if you give your jib too long a back, you fall out a little bit low. So anyway, Callahan's going along nicely. The crew are all looking up. I can see the trimmers are really looking up, double checking that they're getting nice flow of breeze in their sails. He's just gone for
Tommy,
attack here.
And Claire, tell us up the track, because it really is getting light and shifty. It sounds like I'm from Michigan. What's going on up the track? Which side do you like? Sorry to interrupt.
It's still quite light at the top of the track. Oh, this is going to be a close one coming back together, but I think I'm still liking the left potentially.
It's a big lefty here.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Pinckney was in a little bit of a hole a minute ago, but now seems to be powered up. Well, then he's slowing down again. Boy, it's really puffy.
Yeah, and Callahan's just had to take a few waves 30 seconds ago that really parked him up. Just super light now.
Yeah, I think Pinckney will cross ahead from looking at the mast height.
And what you'll find now, out of these tacks, the crew will actually be a lot slower to go to the windward side. So what they're trying to do out of the tacks is let the boat gain a little bit of heel, and then once they've got a sufficient amount of heel, they'll throw a little bit of weight to the windward side, and if they do that at the right time, they can get a little bit of a boost out of these tacks. So it's what we're calling roll tacking, and so that's what's a little bit different to yesterday's races in about 12 knots. Everyone was getting to the new side and hiking pretty quickly. Today it might look like they've been a bit lazy through the tack, but it's quite the opposite.
Let's go back to the start here.
So with 2:38 to go, Cole Tapper has been the yellow entry this time. Jeffrey Peterson and his team on the blue entry, the port entry. And Cole Tapper's done a really good job here of just keeping the boat speed fast and keeping it going and escaping, so he's got a bit of space to do some moves and get playing. And Jeffrey's was a little bit slower out of that dial up, but is able to roll over the top as Cole comes back for him.
So you see, actually, Cole is doing more maneuvering here, a little more aggressive at the start.
This is the finals. Match 2, Peterson up 1-0 over Tapper in this first to win 3 series.
So with it being so light, you'd expect to see both the boats come back to the line pretty early on. Like there's 1:48 to go. There may be 30 seconds from the committee boat with the times extending out. So pretty soon we'll see one of Jeffrey decide to jibe and then see if Cole leads back.
The drone's great. Let's go to the local cam here. We're going to see the boats right in front of us here. Both boats jibing. Great photography. Thank you. So Peterson looks like he wants to lead a little bit. Boy, look at you can see how close the boats are here. I mean, he's literally less than a foot behind.
Now, so far in these pre-starts, no one's been able to sort of hook Peterson here. Sometimes, actually, you'll see Jeffrey will want the hook, particularly if he wants to split and tack right. But Tapper, as opposed to going for the hit here, he's trying to roll him now and go over the top.
Well, but he's not. He's just backed his main here. So I thought he was going to roll him and go over the top, but he didn't. So he's slowing down to make it worse on Jeffrey and really affect Jeffrey's air. And I think the wind's gone a bit left. So I don't know if they can lay.
So you can see on Tapper's boat they're holding the boom to windward, so that you can do that, and that really makes even more dirty breeze come off your sails. So that really parked up Jeffrey. You could see that he was moving along okay and just really slowed up. So Tapper and his team really trying to make Peterson's team as late as possible.
Well, Tapper just slightly late on that tack. If he had tacked a little earlier, he would have been closer to Peterson, possibly kept him from tacking legally. But 20 seconds to go. So Cole's going to own the left, and if we're right, if Tommy
If the
Spithill,
if the left is right.
if the left is right, if Tommy Spithill is right, we want the left. So Cole Tapper right here. Jeffrey will have to tack away here fairly quickly.
And Jeffrey's had to build in the lee of the committee boat there, so he's been downwind trying to accelerate, which really means that the breeze is affected off that committee
And
boat,
here he
which
comes.
slows him up even more.
And here comes the tack that we predicted. He has to get out of there. You know, sometimes when you're ever so slightly above the other boat, my rule of thumb is if you think you're being hurt, then get out of there, even if you're not. Turns out, just because psychologically you know the boat's up there, you know he's beating you at the start, get out of there. And that's what Jeffrey Peterson did.
Well, and that was a beautiful pre-start job by Cole Tapper.
It was. And a little more aggressive.
Yes,
I think
indeed.
he did what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cole Tapper there did come out swinging and really put the pedal to the metal on Jeffrey and his team there, which it's the first time we've seen that for the last couple of days in a start where Jeffrey has been clean swept off the start line. He was clear astern. There's no conversation who's leading off that line.
No, I was just thinking the same thing, Matt, that we haven't seen that. Jeffrey's sort of been in control most of the time. This one, he was really on the defense from about almost 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, so, really, really good job from Cole Tapper and his team there.
Ooh, Jeffrey looks slow here.
He looks, Tommy, what's going on with Jeffrey? They look very slow.
It's just hard going now. You can notice now that it's even softer. The fact that Jeffrey's now not sitting up on the side of the boat. All three of them are in the middle of the boat and as forward as they can to try and get the back of the boat out of the water just for a little less wetted surface area. They're leaning their shoulders in to try and tip the boat a little bit just to carry a bit of heel. But speaking on, that pre-start, one of the key moments there was Tapper was looking like he was going to go and hook Jeffrey, and Jeffrey went low to defend that. And as he was turning down, Tapper turned up and got to windward of him. And as Matt pointed out, he ripped his boom to windward, and that seemed like a really effective move. And now we're just starting to see the boats come back together again. Peterson, even though he looks slow for a little bit here, I've got him
He's on a righty.
bow on bow.
He's on a righty. Yeah, we could see it from here. He was down. He is up about 10 degrees from where he started out.
Interesting here, he's under-tacked
He's conceding.
Tapper,
but-
so it shows how strong he think the right is.
Yep, exactly. And he just got the benefit of a righty. Later in the day, if you were going to make a guess, you'd say, yeah, it might be go a bit more right. It's cleared up quite a bit from this morning, so maybe a little more westerly direction coming. Yeah, we're at 220 thanks to Christine Robertson, our chair and great spotter. We're at 220, so that actually has come 20 degrees to the right.
And if you look up towards the top of the course, you can see Morgan Pinckney and Justin Callahan are even further right phase than it has been. So that's presumably the shift that Jeffrey's trying to get out to right. He wants to lead to that shift because he thinks he got a little bit, but he wants even more. He wants slightly more right-hand shift, maybe pressure with it.
Well, I think also he realized if he was gonna cross, it was gonna be barely. And so at that point, you just decide which side I want. He clearly chose the right, and I think he's gonna end up correct. Yeah,
Andy,
Cole's got a bit of puff there.
Andrew, I've just gotten a text from Dennis, who said her name is Gribben, not Robertson.
I'm sorry. We've known each other for a long time, and
she was always Robertson.
Kevin, you should have found her earlier. I wouldn't be so confused.
It's interesting here,
I did really
Tapper's
get a
tacked
text.
off.
That was
And I wonder if it was also due for Pinckney coming through. He would have had the wind shadow of Pinckney there, and he had a couple of waves. So he thought he's losing. Okay, I'm going to lose a little bit more with the wind shadow of the other boat. So he's gone for a tack. You would have thought he would have waited for Jeffrey, but it showed that he was struggling a little there.
Tommy, it looks like you're right between Callahan and Pinckney as they come downhill. Why don't you update us on that?
Yeah, sure. Pinckney still looks pretty good here. He got a little bit soft after the top mark there, but Callahan looks to me like he's just running a little bit low and slow at the moment. Pinckney's now put his bow up and is doing a little bit more pace downwind, so a comfortable lead there, but at least of 10, 12 lengths.
Okay, I think Cole's tack there. I think the wind is doing what I said it was doing last time. It's phasing a bit, so it's gone back to the left up there, and I think that's what Cole saw, and so took advantage of it immediately, and now Jeffrey is following him in. So we'll see, but I think it's phasing about every 4 or 5 minutes here. It'll go to the left and then to the right.
Matt, what's the race committee just signaled?
So the race committee is signaling a change of mark to yellow. So they've moved that windward mark about 50 to 100 yards left. So that will be affecting the Pinckney and Callahan race. So that's the signal. So the finals match between Peterson and Tapper, that is not affecting it right now.
Tapper is doing a better job of going upwind than we've seen in some of the lighter races.
Yep.
So from boat speed perspective here, he actually has been able to hang on to Peterson at times and look like he's finding that extra gear. The big question is going to be downwind. Can he put some heat on Peterson? Looks like the Peterson's getting. Don't think they're on the lay line yet. I assume they're going to the red mark, so that means that they've got a little bit further to go. Tapper's just maybe half a length behind here. Peterson's tacked right on top of him.
Yeah, Peterson's taken the lead, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's ahead and leeward, and
But
they are.
not by much.
And Tommy, they are going to the orange mark, the red mark. Yeah, and there he's.
Yeah, so they're doing one more tack here. They're not at ley line yet, and Peterson has to follow Tapper here as they do their one last bit of time on starboard before they're on the ley line for the top mark.
That one, it looked like Tapper had a really good tack. Jeffrey had an okay tack, but it looked like Tapper's tack was really good. It won't do him a lot of good because of the positioning, but...
No, certainly
Oops, we've
some
lost.
good gains to his upwind speed. The big area, though, we're going to be looking for is his downwind pace. Can he make Jeffrey sweat a bit? We want to have Jeffrey looking back worried. And so far, we haven't had anyone really do that to him.
No, that's exactly right.
Through the gate have come Pinckney, and now Callahan. Pinckney with a tidy lead here as Callahan rounding the downwind right end of the gate, left end as we look upwind. And Morgan Pinckney and his Newport Harbor Yacht Club team leading 1-0 in this petit finale, the consolation final, are also leading in this second match. If they win this, they take the petit finale and finish third in the Gov Cup.
Yeah, I think you can just see the wind shifting here. The angles have changed just since we've been watching. Yeah, it's gone back to the right, but it's shifting at about 10 or 15 degrees, which is big stuff. If you're on the right side of that shift, you're going to gain a lot.
Do we have a connection with Tommy? We'll go back up to the top mark as the green kite of Jeffrey Peterson is around first.
Yeah, another great set here from Jeffrey and his team. You know, the spinnaker's set and drawing just as the back of the boat, the transom, is passing the mark. So Tapper, a little late getting the pole on, but very quick hands from the bowman here. The pole's set. And they're pre-bracing the chute. And up it goes. Not as slick as Peterson's one, so the spinnaker went up quick, but it hasn't set yet. So he's come out of this set super high here. So not the hoist that they needed here. Jeffrey managed to draw and have a really good exit angle. So, you know, getting around these top marks is trying to find the right spot to point the bow of the boat to help the spinnaker set. And Peterson's done that.
Yeah,
so currently in 8-length lead.
Cole came out a little high on that when they're setting.
And as you can see with this drop-off in pressure, the spinnaker poles are even further forwards than they were. So they're almost sailing it off the forestay like an asymmetric. So they're really trying to do anything just to get a bit of pressure in that kite, get some hull speed, and then they can start taking angle and take it towards the marks. And we'll see really, really big jibing angles here. So that's the one saving grace for Cole Tapper, is that the bigger the jibing angles, the easier it is to get a bit of your dirty air over the other boat.
At 8 lengths, you know, tough stuff. But what Cole has to be doing is just watching over his shoulder, or have one of his crew looking over his shoulder for where the puffs are. And you can see him on the water. And right now, wind strength is more important than tactics. In other words, if you can get in 1 or 2 knots more breeze, you're going to gain. But it's tough. It is really light here now.
What do you think of this, Matt? You got Cole Tapper with the red and white kite splitting away and Jeffrey continuing on port tack.
It's an interesting move here. The general rule, like Andy keeps on saying, stay next to your competition. But I think Jeffrey thought there he had a nice little flat patch of flat spot of waves and decent pressure and angle. So keep on the gaining jibe, and then you can come back later at some point.
I think that's a good point, Matt. You know, in these lighter airs, when the other boat jibes, you can't be panicked and go into a jibe straight away if your boat's not motored right. You know, it might be you've had a bad wave, the spinnaker's flapping. It's like, hang on, let's get a bit of pace. All right, now we're comfy, let's go.
Yeah. Well, with that kind of lead, a loose cover is just fine, and that's basically what Jeffrey's doing. It was a little far. They did split quite a ways, but
You can see Cole Tapper does have really good pace through the water there. He is going along pretty well, so he's got to hope to take that pressure down, get a bit of a shift, and come back into these leeward gates.
well, Jeffrey's having to sail higher to achieve the same speed, and Cole is absolutely on a nice puff here coming down. So this distance is going to be a lot less, I'll tell you that. And here comes Cole.
To me, sorry, Andy, it still looks like Jeffrey's, as the crow flies, he's still pretty close to this gate here.
Oh, yeah.
So he's not, where Cole's jibed is actually on a ley line, so I'd expect him to just jibe directly in front of Cole. But you are right, maybe he has taken back a length or two.
Yeah. Jeffrey now has some more breeze. He's able to come down and soak a little bit, so that was just a momentary thing. And here comes, just as you suggested, Tom, here comes Jeffrey jibing on the ley line to this end of the gate. Again, favoring the right side of the course this late in the day, which I think is probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's interesting here. Are they going to come into this bottom mark and elect to do the left-hand turn just so it's a smoother turn? You carry your boat speed in. For Tapper, if he does do the right-hand turn at the bottom, he's got to drop the spinnaker, jibe, and almost do quite a big turn.
It won't help. I mean, that will slow him down. I think with that kind of lead or deficit, as it were, I think he goes around this right gate looking upwind and then just tacks away, because I agree with you. I think a big turn like that will lose him at least another boat length, maybe two.
Look at up at the top mark, guys. The breeze has gone way right, and look at Morgan Pinckney coming down with a huge lead.
Yeah,
the
so
black and white kite.
That's what the committee is now signaling. They're going to move the mark more to the right.
Yeah.
And then that's unfortunate. These are big shifts out here, and boy, you miss one big one, especially when you split so far. You split so far from the other boat and you miss a shift, you're in deep trouble.
One thing Cole can take a little bit of comfort again from, he has narrowed that lead on this downwind. We haven't seen anyone really chomp away at Peterson's lead downwind, but his crew can be quite happy here that they've got themselves back into this match.
Yep.
So with such a big right-hand shift now, if Peterson were to tack on starboard, he wouldn't be long from the ley line there. He's almost on the ley line for this top mark. So there's not a lot of room for Cole to come back in.
Well, but they've just, I believe we have a new mark. I think that those horns were, I don't know. Anyway, as I suspected, Cole Tapper chose to do this right gate going forward. The other thing about the right gate now, as the wind has shifted to the right gate is closer to the weather mark than the left gate. So good move by Cole, not much he could do.
Now they're all going now to the yellow mark, which is almost a one tack, starboard tack lay, unless the breeze comes back to the left.
Wow.
And we'll see how much further Cole Tapper here in boat 6 continues on port tack. Jeffrey by no means laying at this point, but he's sailing the long tack as you want to do. Now they've just lifted the orange mark and they're all now sailing for the yellow mark.
So Cole Tapper coming upwind with Morgan Pinckney coming downwind. So Cole Tapper has right of way, but he doesn't want to get too close because that would just give him a little bit of light pressure and he'll just lose the wind in his sails for a couple of seconds, which should maybe lose him another quarter boat length, where he's trying to fight for every inch right now.
Morgan's got his spinnaker pole a little high. The idea is you want to keep both clues about level. His is a bit high in this light air. You can see the spinnaker at the top is collapsing quite a bit.
But with that lead,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He can take his kite down and probably win this race, as he's closing in now on the finish. And on the petit finale, the win on 2-0. Pinckney's up 1-0 over Justin Callahan. And the Callahan team has had a terrific series, especially, Andy, considering it's their first Gov Cup.
Absolutely, and I think we can count on seeing them back next year, Tom, and I think they'll be a competitor.
Do you have any influence on that?
I have some influence on that, but we do have a selection committee, and so we really do have a number of people, and we all vote. But yeah, I think he's done a great job. But meanwhile, Morgan will be pleased with this. I know he wanted to be in the final, but he has won the Petit final and matched his third place from 2 years ago.
Right.
In his first Governor's Cup, he got third. Last year, he would rather not talk about, but this year he's back on the podium, which I'm sure ultimately will please him. And again, Morgan is only 18,
Yeah.
Tom. So
He wasn't. He was what, fifth last year? He wasn't that bad.
He was
was
sixth,
He?
I think.
Oh, sixth.
Yeah, but he just didn't like. Morgan's one of those guys, and sixth is not acceptable for him. But I think he'll be. I'm sure he is not as excited now as he would have been. But I'll tell you, it's a great performance. And third in this fleet, a podium finish again, and he has 4 more years in the Governor's Cup.
So is this what you call a chill third?
This
What
is
he
a
will
very
call
chill.
A chill
This
third.
is a very chill third.
Nicely done. Morgan Pinckney, the Newport Harbor Yacht Club, with Mark Murray, Max Mayall, and Alex McCoy. One of 2 women, 2 females sailing in this regatta, and they've had a good one.
Yeah, it's gone back to the right, even a little bit more.
Boy, Jeffrey is almost laying it on one
Yeah,
tack.
he is.
So one thing to note is there's not even going to need to be a jibe potentially on
Yeah.
this downwind. So Justin Callahan is laying the finish line pretty comfortably from rounding without having jibes. So that's really, really good news. You're Jeffrey Peterson and his team, because that means there's no jibe where it gives you a chance for Cole Tapper to get on your breeze. So Cole's would have to go the long way round, so give away even more distance to get onto his breeze. So if you're Jeffrey right now, pretty happy.
Chill.
And wrapping up their first Gov Cup, Justin Callahan, Biscayne Bay Yacht Club with Liam O'Keefe, his brother Mitchell Callahan, and Danny Riano. Bravo Zulu to them as well. They've had a good series, finishing 4th overall.
Semifinalist in his first year, that's a pretty good thing. Now it's gone left right at the oh my goodness. Jeffrey is around the mark with his spinnaker up, and now it's gone left again up there, making it longer for Justin to get to I'm sorry.
For Cole.
Longer for Cole
Yeah.
Tapper to get up there. Sometimes when things go well, they go really well, and sometimes when they go wrong, they go wrong, and that's what's happened here to Cole Tapper. This is unfortunate. We actually haven't seen this. The race committee's done a superb job. That one, I think they were affected by that left shift, 15 minutes ago, and thought, well, that's going to be the right place to put it. In fact, it should have been, much more to the right. But I'll tell you, they've done a terrific job all year. And right now, this wind is shifting so quickly that it's very hard to do, to put it in perfectly. But as Matt says, both upwind and downwind, it becomes just to follow the leader, and there's just nothing you can do in that situation. There are no opportunities like there would be if the course was directly upwind and directly downwind.
Shifty lake sailing out here
Yep.
on the Pacific Ocean. If you're just joining us for the 56th Governor's Cup, the prestigious International Youth Match Racing Championship hosted annually by Balboa Yacht Club. We're about 3 hours into this telecast of the end of the semifinals, and now the finals. We've just seen the consolation match, or the petit finale, as we use the French for the consolation finals in match racing, and that has been won by Morgan Pinckney, 2-0 over Justin Callahan, and now we're concentrating just on the finals. Jeffrey Peterson is leading 1-0. Jeffrey of the host Balboa Yacht Club, Cole Tapper of the Cruising Yacht Club, the esteemed Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, one of the great clubs in the world, certainly. Jeffrey coming into the finish now will go up, it looks like, short of a sea monster, coming up and pulling them to the bottom of the ocean. Jeffrey's going to go up 2-0 over Cole Tapper.
And Jeffrey and his team just getting even more right shift there, which is bringing them down even closer to the finish line here.
The interesting thing, guys, this race, I thought Cole actually did a lot of things right. He won the start, he got off the line well. Unfortunately at the top, didn't help the other match coming through and sort of dictating when he had to tack out. We saw Downwind. He managed to actually take a little bit out of Jeffrey's lead. One thing he will need to sort out, though, we did see the first top mark rounding. As Andy pointed out, he was way too high. And just these small things just make a huge difference now in the lighter airs. But it's certainly visibly a lot quicker through the water in the light than he has been the last few days. So I think there's a lot of positive stuff that Cole can take out of this race. And, they're certainly not out of it.
Still tough. I would not want to be in his position right now.
Yeah, but I think from a coach perspective, he's coached Jordan Reese, who's enjoying being back in the States for the first time in a few years. It's hard to hear about what you're doing wrong all the time, but it's nice to hear when you start getting a few things right, and I think the fact that they got their upwind speed a lot better that race, and we're going better downwind.
Well, it's great to have Jordan back. Jordan himself is a Governor's Cup alumni, and it's great to see him.
The final jibe into the finish line for Cole Tapper, as Jeffrey has now gone up 2-0 in this final series. First to win 3. Can Jeffrey finish this off, Matt, in this next match, or is this now time for Cole Tapper to win one?
Well, if you're Cole Tapper, it's definitely time to win one. You have to win now, but I think it's hard to see Jeffrey losing 3 in a row here. He's got the speed, he's got the wheels, and he's a good match race with good boat handling, which ultimately you can generally get stuff done. So I think if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be wanting to bet against Peterson in the next race.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Although that said, I would be surprised, going all in, I would be surprised if it was a 3-0.
Okay, we think the race committee will turn this around quickly. There's only this one match left. The other competitors, however, have very sportingly stayed out here. Sails lowered, tied behind spectator boats. And there is a nice spectator fleet out here today. Welcome to all of you who are joining us off the Newport Beach Elementary School, what the race committee calls the school course, here in the Pacific Ocean, turning into a beautiful afternoon. Must be, 80 Fahrenheit, high 70s anyway, gentle breeze. What would you say the temperature is, Christine?
76.
High 70s. The breeze is a little soft. We'd all like to have a touch more wind. I'm sure everybody would. But we see here the coach has joined Jeffrey Peterson, and Max Brennan and his rest of it. Enzo Mendito is only one other on the team, but Jeffrey's getting a hold of himself there. I hope we don't have a camera on him right now. We don't have a zoom big enough. Chris, that was cruel. Oh, dear. I think we all need a coffee up here. Maybe we can get Kari Bretschker, our Director of Craft Services, to bring us an afternoon lift up. But the racing has nonetheless, throughout this series, been terrific, Matt. What do you think? What would have you done differently if you were Jeffrey Peterson so far?
Well, I think if I was Jeffrey Peterson and I was 2-0 up in a Governor's Cup final, I wouldn't be thinking of changing too much. Yeah, he's lost one race all week, won every other race. I think hard to say you could be doing much better. I think the only thing I'd say is make sure you put on a bit more sun cream.
The Governor's Cup is presented by Call of the Sea, Terry Causey, and by Disc Spine. Well, it's it's Disc Spine and Disc Center, right? I better get my glasses out so I can read the fine print here under the logos if I'm going to do the mandated. Let's read the sponsors. No, but we deeply appreciate it. We had Dr. Rob Bray on the show this morning, the morning shows. Disc Sports and Spine Center, and Terry Causey's Call of the Sea. those are our two main partners, and we're deeply appreciative of them, as well as the Kroll family, and then fleet level sponsors Judy Gorski, Christine and Kevin Gribben, formerly Robertson, Terry Hausman and Bo Briscoe, and the Newport Balboa Sailing and Seamanship Association, NIPSA, who actually own the boats. Andy and others have raised a considerable sum of money to build, design, build, and maintain these boats now for what? Is this the 5th Gov Cup that we've used? 5th or 6th? 7th? Round about 6, give or take a year, that these boats have been used. They're provided by NIPSA, by Balboa Yacht Club. And then we have a crack team of bosuns led by Father Greg Newman. They do a terrific job maintaining these boats, keeping them in race form year-round, especially during Gov Cup week. And we are deeply appreciative of all of them, and of course the race committee and the umpires and Chris Bretschker's TV team. All volunteers, 200 plus volunteers led by Christine Gribben. Chris, how many on your Gov Cup TV team this year? 19, including his mom and dad, who provide the yacht adios from which we do the broadcast. This is a what? Navigator's 53. Oh, there's Commodore Bretschker right here flying one of the drones for us. Chris, we have 3 drones this year. We've never had 3 drones, right? So slowly but surely we upgrade the program. It's a long way, Chris, from when we started with an iPhone on a tripod back a dozen years ago. And we hope you're enjoying it as much as we are, although it is, Maddie, getting a little soft.
Yeah, very very light breeze right now. Probably dropped off even since since they finished that race. So it was pretty light at the start of that race. Dropped off a little bit during the race, and it's definitely not built at all. Probably dropped another half a knot. So yeah, I think the race committee are just hoping a little bit more comes in. They've got a mark up in where the breeze is right now, but I think they're just trying to hopefully get a little bit more breeze for some good finals racing coming up.
Well, as Matt, as you know, and probably most other racing sailors, whether local or not, when the breeze drops off, it often is it's anticipatory. It anticipates a big shift in direction, and I think we're starting to see quite a righty coming in here now, and that may cause a bit of a delay as the race committee probably wisely lets the breeze settle on a new, more southwesterly direction.
Yeah, I think right now, at the start of that previous race, we were about 200 degrees, and now we're about 235. So 35 degree shift.
I wonder if we can get Claire Costanza, who's we got just a quick chance maybe to get Claire Costanza to talk about her experience sailing in the Gov Cup and what's different today than it was just a few years ago when she sailed. We got Tommy and his mic ready over there, and Claire.
Hey Tom, sorry, could you repeat that question again?
We're just wondering what has changed, if anything, when you sailed in this regatta. How many years ago?
So I did 2017, 18 and 19, so quite some years ago now.
Oh, well, not that long. So
not compared to when Tommy last did it.
4, 5, and 6 years ago. What's different from this time around, do you think? How's the competition compared to when you sailed, for example?
There's definitely more countries here and less Aussies and Kiwis dominating up the front end, with 3 Americans in the top 4. Pretty similar conditions, nice hot sunny days, but very different conditions to that day we had a few years ago when one of the boats lost their mast. That was pretty exciting for final conditions.
Well, we sure appreciate your joining Tom on the roving boat. As we're looking forward now, the race committee signaling the Foxtrot, which is the attention signal, we call it in match racing, code flag F, the white flag with a red diamond. It's up and it's now already down, which means here comes the 5-minute signal. About 30 seconds to what will be just numeral pennant 1. The one match that is left out here, of course, is the finals. Peterson leading over Tapper 2-0. Andrew, are you reconstituted?
I am. The wind is unfortunately coming even a bit more to the right, which is generally a good thing here, but it has died, and there's still enough to sail. But boy, I think man, only just. Huh?
Yeah, right on the lower limits. So this is, if the breeze dropped off any more, you know, we'd be struggling to get any racing in. So I think you'd be thinking about doing in the boat. Where would you thinking with your crew position, changing any jib car settings, anything?
Yeah, look, I think keeping the crew as low. Yeah, developed being out in the ocean here. So I'd just be saying to the crew, make sure out of manoeuvres, don't worry about height. Let's just go for speed first, you know. So, yep, maybe make the jib a little fuller. We can go cars forward a little bit, maybe a little bit deeper in the main, but be accurate.
Well, as part of it, you know, these boats are modern design. You'll notice the sterns are rather wide compared to the older boats. And there's a lot of wetted surface, basically, which is the amount of hull under the water, which, of course, creates drag. So I think Tommy's exactly right. Any one of these boats, and my 50-footer is the same design, basically, and you want to keep the weight forward in light air. Full out there when the wind's this light.
And I think the advantage is going to be on Peterson here. Obviously, with the starboard boat entry, with the line the way it is, it seems, you know, a little bit squarer now. For the starboard boat, you do get an advantage as you come across with the starboard tack advantage. So it'll be interesting to see. We've seen Jeffrey do this where he's held on to control from the moment of entry.
We haven't seen a lot of action above the line. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. If I can drag the other boat way above the line and then return to start, it's kind of a neat thing. We haven't seen a lot of that in this because I think both sailors are, all the sailors are too good for that.
You're right. I don't think we've seen anyone pop a spinnaker in the pre-start, have we, this week?
No, and that actually, Tommy brings...
Right on.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, well.
Spit Hill, you're going to get the Academy Award for this performance. There you go.
Hey, I'm predicting the future. There's
Yep.
my sorcery.
There you go. That's sorcery, mate. It's Tom Spithill sorcery. Well, that's excellent. Okay, so what happened, folks, is basically they are above the line. There's very little wind. In trying to get down without the extra power of a spinnaker would have been difficult. So now you're seeing before the start both boats using a spinnaker. Again, the crew work is crucial here because now they're going to have to take the spinnakers down and be sure they don't lose speed in doing it. But both boats doing it brilliantly. I mean, both those were great sets. And
You know, we know, speaking of crew work, we know that Jeffrey and Max are good, have been good together in the past, but I think the addition of Enzo Mendito
without question,
has been a huge advantage for Jeffrey.
without question. And I think Jeffrey would tell you that. He said he was really good at calling the shifts. You know, maybe instead of Jeffrey as navigator on the 12-meter next week, got to take Enzo.
Yeah, take Enzo.
What do you reckon? Sorry, Jeffrey. You spoke too highly of him.
Okay, I'm going to put my money on Cole Tapper. I don't think he's over with this series. I think he's going to be super aggressive here now, even in this light.
Speed. And it's so hard to build that speed through the water when it's this light. So if he can keep on sailing more distance, but keeping that whole speed up, he's going to be in a really good position to lead Jeffrey back to this pin end. Really, really good moving and positioning.
It's brutal in this light air. The boats don't do that. Who is Jeffrey really going to try to go above the boat there at 45 seconds to go?
Yeah, so Jeffrey's trying to go.
I think this is the right decision here, Andy. I was just thinking then that going above the boat's going to be good for him.
Well, I'm not sure because I think he would have been up quite a ways up on Tapper, starting on starboard there. The line's much more even than it was. So
the one thing to remember here is the orange flag with the Balboa Yacht Club Burgee is a long way up on the bow.
Yes.
So both boats behind the line at go there with find it quite hard to lay the pin end there, but just making it over. So really good timed run in there by Cole Tapper and his team.
Yeah, I think
forcing Peterson to tack away.
What I think Jeffrey didn't help him. In other words, he ended up with Cole Tapper with a lee bow position. I think he still had a chance with that much time. With 40 seconds to go, he could have played with Cole, forced Cole down to the end, maybe, who knows. Stay between the other yacht and the mark. And now it's just a boat speed thing. And right now, Cole seems to be going pretty quickly there, Tommy.
Yeah, Cole's going through the water quite nicely. Peterson, though, they're matching here. So I'd say both boats are... So I see your point, Andy. about whether he would have had any chance to have a go at him in that last 40 momentum. He was able
Yeah.
to really lead in and get that pin, have pace. And as you know, in lighter airs, it's particular to knock towards the beach here.
Yeah, all I was saying is that so if you know around the bottom of the boat and see if you can attack the other boat, and if you can't, you're going to end up in the same place. When he did that, these tacks are brutal.
So really light winds now, so the team's just really trying to do everything to work the boats with their body weight, try and reduce that rudder movement speed.
But the early advantage is to Cole Tapper. He's in the lead. He's forced.
You'll watch, he's just going through one here now. Now, the important thing will be to...
He's getting headed again.
But what Tapper's doing quite well out of the tacks is staying not...
We've got a change of the lead.
We have a change of lead trying to go to the right. We've told it's...
One thing, a lot of people under trimming them, and he actually manages to sheet them.
It's a very close race. Let's see what...
Peterson can't cross. A lee bow tack here is very, very strong because they're out near the starboard line.
for his air. So he tacks slightly to leeward. And here goes Tapper. But you can see how slow...
This tap really hurt Tapper then.
Yeah, it really
He
did.
had a little bit of a bad way.
It may work out. And the puffs now are coming more from...
Powering up. He's getting a little pressure. He's banged Cole out to the short side. Classic match
Peterson
racing.
only needs a tiniest of lifts here, and he's
Exactly.
pretty much on the ley line
much
at the moment.
there,
He's just under to then come back.
Go and get in touch with the other boat, which
Smart
is a really
move.
good move.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. I hate to say that. They'll go to the right, then it'll come back very briefly to the left, and then back to the right. And, you got to take it. Yeah. See, now Jeffrey is far enough ahead. He's able to tack on with a lull straight up, and it's like, oh, God. It's the worst feeling.
We're always trying to have everything eased, free, loose, and fast.
That's
okay?
right. That's right.
Yeah. Unlike our need.
We're going to say it again. These boats actually can sail in this, and they are sailing in this. And it's
So starting to see just a tiny bit more breeze at the top of the course here.
oh, great.
You probably wouldn't be racing in these conditions, so credit to Alan Andrews and his team that made the boats.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's absolutely true. I guarantee you. A couple of the boats that we use here, like boats, and they've served a terrific purpose, but they are not modern. These are modern light boats, and in this condition, these can sail and those can't.
Sonar's a great boats in 8 to 12 knots.
Yep.
Seems he'll jump on board, Matt, and strangle you.
Yeah?
I bet get practicing my swimming back to shore now then.
Yeah. Well, you know what they call them in America, Tom, is...
I knew you were going to
I
say
know,
this.
slow-nars. But they've served.
Sure
We
do.
would not have, with the conditions this week, we would have maybe gotten a single round robin in. And so, again, I agree with you, Matt. Kudos to Al.
Sailed down at San Diego Yacht Club and up at St. Francis
St.
Yacht
Francis,
Club, up
yeah.
in San Francisco.
Again, great boats, but these are better in this condition, and that's what they were.
See from the drone, but you notice Tapper upwind. One thing that has been impressive that he hasn't jammed everything on. You're behind, you're searching for height. He's actually quite eased on the jib here and running a bit of a low mode up. Find your opposition right in the race. So, as you said, going downwind is going to be very, very hard work in these conditions. And Jeffrey's hit the top.
When they were setting their spinnaker, just as it started to fill, it dragged their boat sideways with the current.
Unforced error.
Jeffrey yelled something out at the time then.
And in this wind, doing a
I'm not sure where he owned hitting it or it was like.
Well, he's way ahead, but boy, in this light, doing your penalty turn, it's a bit.
If you are a decent length ahead, if the boat's doing 2 knots, they don't do many boat lengths towards.
10 or more boat lengths, hits, collides
Buster clock,
that you've
definitely.
ever windward mark ender yourself, and keep your fingers
Just so I
away
don't
from
put my
the-
fingers in the
the
return
turning
block.
block.
Almost hit the top mark himself. There's quite a lot of current. I was just looking at as well. So it's easier said than done in these conditions.
That would be a first, though.
Well, this is the
But
second time he's hit
it
a
is the
mark
second
when he was
time.
leading, right?
I just don't get some of this. I'll tell you.
That'll-
maybe you said-
you'll have to ask that in the press conference, Andy.
Yeah, well, maybe he said the mark jumped out at me. It was unfair.
Or maybe he was practicing his French.
Timothy Rossi, who's been here, has been, shall we say, demonstrative
Demonstrative.
with the umpires when they've made a call, and there's a lot of gesticulating. And
Boats are moving through the water quite a bit more quickly now. So that as this pressure comes in.
Again, guys, that current at the top of the track and the light air and the bump. I think, not making excuses, but to see both boats sort of have this, they're literally getting sucked into that mark at the top there. So a fair bit of current to contend with. So they really need to factor that in when picking a ley line, picking a nice, safe, ley line to get around the top mark in good shape.
And so the mark set boat is signalling a change of course to the yellow mark, which is a lot shorter, reflecting this light breeze that's coming down. So just trying to keep the racing short and concise in the target times.
Ooh, not a great takedown here at the leeward mark by
not a great
Mr.
takedown Tapper and crew.
Hal, you're jammed?
I don't know. Yes, Spinnaker's still about a third of the way, or a bit more, 40% up. His jib doesn't look like it's totally trimmed. Maybe it is. It doesn't look. It's just a distraction. That's not what you want when you're steering a boat in a final of a match race series, is to keep looking up and seeing that red thing up there.
In the slot.
In the slot, exactly.
So here, Jeffrey Peterson leading out probably 6 or 7 boat lengths ahead, which is just about enough room to do a penalty here. So he might go for his jibe, but as he is doing it, he's definitely
here he goes.
Maybe he's got the comms on board.
Here he goes.
So he's offsetting his penalty here, so doing the jibe round that he has to do on the beat, the 270-degree turn.
So that's done. So there's no penalty, and this mark is really short now in this very light breeze. So he still has a nice lead here over Cole Tapper. Very wise again. I mean, he killed that penalty a couple races ago extremely well. He killed that one very well, and almost exactly the right time. He was in a bit of a puff.
The big question here now for Peterson is, when does he go back on Tapper here? He's going to have to do 2 nice tacks here.
And here he goes.
Because after this, next time when the boats come together, I've almost got Tapper actually here is going to have a bit of a piece here on starboard here, guys.
He might. Jeffrey came out of that really slowly. He might. And Cole's on a little bit of a puff. Oh, and Jeffrey is still moving slower than Tapper. He's still ahead, but only just.
So Tapper's got a little bit of gauge to windward here.
He does.
He may be able to live for at least... No,
Yeah.
so he's elected to bail out straight away. So before he even felt any bad air from Peterson, he's doing another stab right. And there is better pressure out here. The further right you go, you are being rewarded.
Well, that's Newport Beach in the afternoon in a sou'wester, and it's coming true. So here comes Cole. Jeffrey realized he came out of that tack very slowly and is elected to say, well, Cole, you'll have to do 2 more tacks. I'm going to only do 1 into the mark, but boy, it's going to be very close. Cole, again, seems to have a nice puff.
He does.
It'll be interesting, Matt. If Tapper has a piece of Peterson here, we may see both boats not go around the top mark.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of match racing here. Like we said, Cole's got to be a bit more aggressive, and he's maybe got the option to do that here. So one thing to note as well is if Cole is within the zone when he gets the top mark, he is obligated to go around the mark. So Cole has got to be hoping he's coming in outside the zone to open up his options.
I'm not sure he is. Here comes Jeffrey's tack. It's going to be very close.
Ooh.
Actually, he had a nice tack there. Came out on it. Looks like just an ever so slight lefty.
Looks like a clear cross for Cole Tapper and his team. So another lead change there.
Yep.
Great sailing there.
Yep. Very well done.
Although here, because Jeffrey and his team have been on port for a little bit longer, they've got their pole on, so chances that they might be able to do a slightly better set. And you see, as Tommy said,
and here we go.
Cole takes him past the mark just so he gets set. Make sure he gets the pole ready.
Now the big question here is, when does Tapper pull away? And what he's going to be looking for is obviously for Peterson to be slow. And then he will pick the right time when Peterson's in a bad shape and he's in better shape. That's when you're going to see him go for the hoist. So we may be like this for quite a while, guys. So
Andrew,
certainly
seen this movie
don't look
before.
away.
We've seen this movie before. What they're doing, just for those of you to put you on the course, we aren't looking over the course right now. They've both gone past the windward mark. Cole Tapper has the right of way as the leeward boat. You can see where they should be coming is right to the center bottom of your screen right now, but they're not. So they're continuing to go out. They're working on boat speed right now and trying to decide at some point Cole's going to decide, okay, I've gained a little bit here. I'm going to pop the chute really well, and I'm going to get down there. Jeffrey is just waiting for a slight mistake on Cole's part. Again, Jeffrey Peterson's speed and his team, Max and Enzo, have been really fast downwind. So, if I was Cole, I'd be happy with where I am, but I'd be nervous.
It's funny, both bowmans on each boat here. Tapper's boat has removed their spinnaker pin, so Jeffrey's boat has responded there with Enzo putting away their spinnaker pole. So what that tells me is that Tapper's ready to keep going all the way to Long Beach here.
Yep.
So one thing, that the further they go upwind, the more this plays into Jeffrey Peterson's hand, because there's a longer downwind that they're going to have to come back down around, so he's got more time to get the pass on.
But I guess also too, in addition to being upwind, if Tapper can take him so that there's a long jibe back in, a long starboard,
here we go,
reaching into the committee boat.
Here we go, Tommy. Spinnakers are up, and a jibe. And Jeffrey's a little better than Tapper. Tapper just now filling his chute. Jeffrey Peterson with a brilliant move there. His crew work, was just superb, and he's just already threatening to roll Cole Tapper. Whoa, there's a little collapse. So Cole's coming out from under him a bit. Oh, this is going to be quite a race, guys.
So it looks like Cole is breathing out front. So that means he's getting wind in front of Jeffrey's spinnaker. So that was really, really good. Just saved it on Cole Tapper's boat. So he's got breeze out front. And remember, they do have to make sure they leave this top mark on the correct side, which they are going the wrong side of it. So there'll be a jibe pretty soon.
Air forward, as we said,
Yep.
in the America's Cup.
So, now at this point, Cole is marginally in downwind jail, but interestingly, it's above the windward mark. And as Matt is absolutely correct, they cannot go past the mark and leave it to port on their left side. They have to get that starboard side in there, and they're going to have to go past the mark here.
Well, it looks like they're not listening to Matt's advice here. Be interesting to see what Jeffrey does.
Yeah, here comes Jeffrey.
Oh, this is a big mistake.
Oh, my
Tapper,
goodness.
Another fuster cluck.
Oh, my goodness. Is he forgetting to...
Of magnificent proportions.
He's forgetting to unwind.
Jeffrey's pointing this out to the umpires.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
So this will be interesting, too, for any proper course. If the boats come together again, they're technically now on different legs. Am I right, Matt?
Yes.
Yes, they are on different legs. Cole Tapper is on the beat right now, technically.
Oh, my goodness. Oh. Tom, I don't know what to say.
Downwind.
So Jeffrey now, he should be breathing a bit of a sigh of relief here. This is almost like a bit of a nice, swan song, a bit of a cruise as he comes down to the finish line here.
Yeah, Jeffrey Peterson just needs to sail for the 200, 300 yards down to this finish line, and he's the only one on the downwind leg of the course. So even if Cole Tapper appears to cross the line first, he has not technically rounded that top mark correctly, so he is still on the beat.
Tom, am I correct in saying, I believe last year, one of the final races, which was ultimately called off, Jeffrey did exactly the same wrong thing. He did not unwind himself from the gate. He did not unwind. And by that we mean just if you drew a string, if a string was behind the boats, be sure that you always round the marks at the right correction. What happened with Cole is he went around and to unwind it means he did not round that mark ever.
Well, it's
and he's thinking, look at this. He's thinking, God, maybe I'm going to cross him, and this is going to be great. And
that's some fodder for the press conference, Andrew.
Yeah, it is. I don't even want to bring it up. It's something that sometimes you just make complete mistakes like that, and it happens.
He'll bring it up. But this red and white kite of Cole Tapper, while appearing to be in the lead, they have not, we don't believe, properly sailed the course.
We don't believe, yes. Confirm that there is a flag up.
There's no flag on the bow of the committee boat.
A yellow flag has gone up.
Jeffrey Peterson has just won the Governor's Cup, his second Governor's Cup, joining 12 people who have won 2 cups. Incredible job, great job, and it's sad to see it end that way, Tom.
Indeed.
They were having a really close, wonderful race, and hate to see that, but Jeffrey Peterson was the best team out here. Jeff and Max and Enzo just, that was awesome.
It's just sinking into Cole Tapper here. What's happened? He's confused. He just crossed the line ahead here, and the jubilant scenes here with Peterson and the crew. Finally getting to relax, and I think the ceremonial dip's about to happen.
I was just going to say, there they go. The traditional Governor's Cup dive. All the crew leaves the yacht. And as you see, the boat is, the bosun boat is ready for it because they've seen it now for about 25 years. But I'll tell you what, that's the best feeling in the world to dive in after winning the Governor's Cup.
And great job from the bosun there. We had a beautiful
Yep.
retrieval of the Gov Cup 22.
As I said, they're getting pretty good. You know, they've been. This is not their first rodeo.
Tommy, you're going
And
to
wonderful
pick up,
dive from all three crew there.
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of a twist from Enzo as he jumped in.
Tommy, you're going to pick at least Jeffrey up, if not all three of them, and do a bit of an interview. We may lose you for a moment when you do that.
Tell me, get that.
Yeah, guys, we're just waiting for the boat to come alongside, and I'll have you talking to the winning team.
Well, I've never seen a conclusion to the Governor's Cup or any other match racing event like that, Andrew.
No, I haven't either. It's, as I said, it's sad. It's a mistake, and during the heat of battle there, you know, it's sort of a basic thing, but I think he was concentrating on Jeffrey Peterson and team and not thinking about sort of the basics that better round the mark.
Well,
that's part of some of the control Jeffrey Peterson and his team have done.
Yep.
They're making people distract too much on them because they've had such imperious boat handling, boat speed this week.
I think you're
so
right.
it distracts you, and that's simply all that happened to Cole Tapper there.
Yep.
Really, really unfortunate way to happen. But
Okay, here we go. So
guys,
Tommy.
I've got the winning team right here. Jeffrey, firstly, just introduce your team, mate.
Yeah, from this front of the boat, Enzo Mendito. It's his first match racing Regatta ever, and he's the reason we won today. He was calling all the shifts out there on the race course, and he was pretty awesome all week. And then we got Max Brennan trimming the main and the spinnaker, and my God, does he make that boat go fast. I owe it to these boys 100%. Didn't do too great on the starts today. They really pulled us back into the race and tried to keep me calm when I was losing my shit. So probably for the bad language there, but that last one was pretty stressful. So we're just happy.
Terrific, mate. Enzo?
Yes.
Pretty good record. Are you going to retire?
I might think about it. No, I'm just kidding.
undefeated.
Since it's my first match racing ride, I honestly fell in love with the sport. And this is why I love the sport so much, because there's like so many different aspects to it. But you'll see me back on the match racing course once or twice. So, yeah.
And Max, you know, you've been actually sailing with Finn a bit. How did it feel to get one up on him?
Yeah, you know, it's always good to beat your friends. But no, they gave us a great final series and a great regatta, so I'm really happy. And, you know, this is my last Governor's Cup, so last day in the boats to come out and have a good day and take away the win on the last one feels really good.
And for you, Jeffrey, and the team, I think last year there was issues with unwinding yourself around the course and what have you. How sure were you when you saw him go the other side of the yellow marker? You're like, oh, sweet, righto, I think we've done it. But you're sort of still like, okay, guys, keep it cool. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so obviously we took it for a little scenic route above the top mark there, and you know, we were both jockeying for position, and credit to Cole and his team, they really dirtied us out of that. They had a really great hoist and sailed high, but they kept sailing high, and Max is like, hey, just remember, like, we got to go to the left-hand side of this mark. We got to actually round it. And we're like, yeah, okay. And then he keeps reaching up and the mark passes to leeward, and we waited until it was like a beam reach jibe for us, and jibe and took a step down just to make sure. And then at that point it was like, okay, it's in the hands of the umpire now. He didn't sail the course. We're going to, keep engaging and pretending like, we're sailing still and not give any clue to, hey, you might have not rounded the mark. And we definitely learned our lesson after last year. We're not going to make that mistake twice.
Awesome. And from the central commentary position there, any questions from you guys for the winning team?
Well, I don't know if I have a question, but Jeffrey, so you said Max called that time. We still have to round the mark. I would hope that you were thinking the same thing as my navigator next week on a 12 meter. I hope you would have remembered around the mark.
Don't worry, Andy. I'll make sure to pay attention to that. I was more focused on Cole there. But then when he brought it up, I was like, oh, yeah, good point. Might want to round the marks. We're actually on the downwind leg. But I promise next week I won't make that mistake.
All right, very good. Matt, you had said something that's interesting, Tommy, that, Matt said, I think, Jeffrey, you guys have sailed so well and so fast this week that we were wondering how Cole could make a mistake like that. And Matt, you had a good comment on maybe what was going on.
Yeah, I think I just thought it seemed like it was credit to how you boys have sailed this week. You've been on it on the boat handling, on it on the boat speed, on it on the match racing side of the game. So, just always asking the question, always applying the pressure to the other boat. And I think if you ask the question enough, eventually it cracks. And I think that moment was a moment that Cole cracked, which, kudos to you. That was not just one moment. That was 5 days of sailing incredibly well.
Without question.
Yeah, and I want to give a huge shout out to Cole and his team. They've sailed a fantastic regatta and a great series. They put up a hell of a fight, and I think, I've been in that situation where you're in a must-win like that with your backs up against the wall, and it's so hard to overcome all that pressure. You got all these people watching you. But they sailed a great last race. I mean, I told Enzo and Max I might need a new pair of pants after that one. I can't believe I hit the weather mark. That was just ridiculous. But the boys, and we sailed really well. But huge credit to Cole and his team. But a bigger give out and shout out to these two boys to my right. They made it look easy this week.
Well, the final thing for me, Tom, is to congratulate Jeffrey on joining the club. Now the 13th person who has won 2 Governor's Cups, and unfortunately Jeffrey could win a 3rd one, which would really piss me off.
Well, and you got to work on World Sailing so they don't change that date and put me permanently in the commentary booth. So it's in your hands now.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
Well, why don't we get the three of you in front of the camera one more time here.
All right.
Winners of the 56th Governor's Cup from Balboa Yacht Club, Jeffrey Peterson.
All right. Max Brennan and Enzo Mendotti. Awesome job, guys.
Okay, well, that about wraps it up for us. We wanted a few closing comments here. Thanks very much to Tom Spithill and Claire Costanzo on the other boat. Congratulations to Cole Tapper and his team, who sailed a magnificent series. And Andy, we haven't seen anything like that.
Nope. That was terrific. And also to Morgan Pinckney getting 3rd. Podium finish again, his 2nd, 3rd place in the Governor's Cup, and he's only 18 years of age. Justin Callahan, who was a newbie, was a semifinalist in 4th. We're going to see these guys back next year, Tom, and I'm excited. I'm already excited.
Indeed. Matthew, final thoughts?
I mean, just a great day's racing. Yet the breeze went through multiple different phases in that final series. The higher breeze yesterday, lower breeze today, just showed that you have to be good in all conditions. You can't just be good in one. And I think we had the deserved winner of the Governor's Cup in 2023
for the 2nd time.
For the
Jeffrey
2nd time,
Peterson. We've thought. I think we've thanked the race committee a number of times, but we'll say it again. Dr. Don Becker, Ryan Davidson, and their team have done a fabulous job. The international umpires, of course, Christine Gribben Robertson and her team of 200-plus volunteers. Thank you very much indeed. But we also want to thank Chris Bretschker and his Gov Cup TV crew 2023, Colin Kennedy, who is the roaming boat director, Tommy Spithill, we mentioned, Claire Costanzo, the commentators there, Rocket Farm for the camera operation over on that boat, and Dustin, whose last name is the captain over on the roaming boat. Dustin the captain, okay.
Dustin X, Tom.
That's Dustin X. Ryan X, now Dustin X. Here on the main media boat, Kari Bretschker is what we call the director of craft services. Chris Bretschker, our director and really the executive producer of Gov Cup TV. David George switching the show, technical director for us. Terry, thank you, as he's known. Andy Rose here, co-commentator along with Matt Whitfield and myself. Commodore Peter Bretschker, the owner of this boat with his wife Kari. Commodore was flying Drone 1, Byron Barker flying Drone 2, Tyler Wayman flying Drone 3. First time we've had 3 drones. Christophe Chalmont was he's up there with the Falcon gloves on.
Right.
drone retrieval and battery management, much appreciated. Robert Rollins, onshore production with me for the various shows there, but also the stern camera op here. Ken Sherb, our primary crack spotter and scribe. Thank you, Ken. And thank you to Christine Gribben, our spotter as well. And Carly Kiss, who was the spotter and the antenna lady. I think we had quite a better connection to
Much
the
better.
roving boat
Without
today.
question.
And Hendrick, we have a new
Hendrick Rydell.
who's he going with you to?
He's going with
Newport?
us to get the sails in on the 12-meter.
Okay, well that about does it for us. Thank you to everybody.
Go to a picture of Ken.
Sure, come on in.
Come here. This is our Ken doll. This is Sailor Ken. Given the popularity of the Barbie movies, he dyed his hair blonde. But let me also say, Christine, Gribben has done a terrific job at everything she does. Ken, last year, Chris Bretschker was very irritated because you deserted us to actually sail in the Governor's Cup. That was just stupid,
I'd do it again.
I know you would. Well, now you're back, so this is the Sailor Ken, all right? And as a spotter sounds, you probably don't know a lot how that helps us. Without the spotters, we would be talking gibberish. They keep us
even more so.
Even more so. They tell us which boat is which, where they're going, what we're going to look at, etc. So can't thank you enough, and I hope you and Barbie have a good night.
We will.
All right.
Ken Sherb, our crack spotter. Thank you, Ken. And from all of us, we thank you very much for joining us around the world. The race committee giving us a couple horns there, towing in Jeffrey and Co. as they will get a hero's reception at the Yacht Club tonight. We will be live again tonight, our final show at 5 p.m., 5 Pacific, 1700, and we will have a terrific, we got a lot to talk about, Andrew, in the press conference with the two finalist skippers, and then immediately following that, Christine Gribben and the Vice Commodore, I think. The Vice Commodore of the Yacht Club will be doing the awards tonight, the prize giving. Hope you can join us for that at 5 o'clock, 1700 Pacific. In the meantime, I'm Tom Ehman. Thank you very much, and maybe we'll see you out here on the water next year. God, Chris Bretschker, and Andy, and a lot of others willing. In the meantime, adios from Adios.